Chapter 1. China, Zhongdu. In the cold, winter night of December, the cold wind kept sweeping through the streets, as if to take away the last trace of warmth in the world. A loud clang was heard. The big iron door of the fast food restaurant was slammed shut by Li Yanping. The girl on the side carefully rubbed her hands, blew out a breath of hot air, and said, "The weather is too cold. Let's hurry and catch the bus." The girl's name was Anna, and she and Li Yanping, who closed the iron door, were both university students nearby. They both worked part-time in this fast food restaurant. Although her clothes were simple, her beautiful face and the unique youthful aura of a young girl, especially her pair of straight and slender legs, made her look very charming. Li Yanping pulled the iron door hard, and after making sure that the door was locked, he shook his head and said, "No, I have something to do today, so I have to go to the other side." "Oh," Anna said softly, "I'll go first?" Looking at Li Yanping's delicate face, her tone had a trace of disappointment, but Li Yanping didn't notice it. He said to himself, "Well, you have to be careful walking alone at night. Call me if you need anything. I'll go first." After that, Li Yanping waved his hand and walked away without looking back. Anna, who was behind him, looked at his departing figure. Her face unknowingly flushed, and a trace of hesitation flashed through her eyes. Seeing Li Yanping walk further and further away, as if he was about to be submerged in the darkness, she took a deep breath and finally gathered her courage and shouted, "Hey, Li Yanping, wait." "What's wrong?" Li Yanping turned his head and looked at Anna with a puzzled face. He only felt that the girl today was a bit strange, as if she had something on her mind, and when she was working, she was always absent-minded. Sensing Li Yanping's gaze, Anna's breathing became rapid, and her small mouth was wide open, but she couldn't say a word. All the excuses that he had thought of earlier were swept away. He only felt that his mind was completely blank, and he couldn't remember anything. Li Yanping felt even more strange. He walked back to Anna's side and touched the girl's forehead with one hand. He frowned and said, "Why is your face so red? The weather is very cold. Did you catch a cold?" It was as if he was about to suffocate. Feeling Li Yanping's hand on her forehead, Anna's cheeks turned even redder in an instant, as if she was about to faint. However, he no longer stuttered. He only blurted out what he wanted to say in a daze. "There's a new aquarium opening in the city this weekend. Can you accompany me to take a look?" "Oh, sure." Li Yanping felt that the temperature on the other party's forehead was normal. She didn't seem to have caught a cold, so he relaxed. She shouldn't have caught a cold. However, it's cold these few days. Don't forget to wear more clothes and keep yourself warm. I'll contact you this weekend. I'll go first." Anna's head was still dizzy. By the time she returned to normal, Li Yanping had already disappeared, leaving only the girls' cheers echoing on the street. Yeah, Li Yanping, who had already walked far away, naturally didn't hear the girls' cheers. His eyes swept across the street as he muttered to himself, "I remember that he was here. Did he leave today?" Over the past few days, Li Yanping would always see an old man with a child setting up a stall on the street when he passed by the street near the fast food restaurant. Zhongdu had been getting colder and colder these days. Because he saw the news on the internet that a homeless person had frozen to death on the street today, Li Yanping began to worry about the old man who set up the stall. Suddenly, Li Yanping's eyes narrowed as he saw the old man. He walked slowly to the stall and said with a smile, "The weather is so cold. Haven't you closed the stall yet?" The old man's face was full of wrinkles. Without the protection of gloves, his hands were frozen like a purple radish. Seeing a guest coming to the door, he immediately said with enthusiasm, "Not yet. Just take whatever you like. 2 yuan each." On the old man's chest lay a 4 or 5-year-old boy. The little boy was tightly wrapped and had already fallen asleep. His small face was full of fatigue. Seeing this scene, Li Yanping's face darkened and didn't speak. Instead, he looked at the things on the stall. A few shabby secondhand books, some outdated earrings, bracelets, and toys. To be honest, there were only a few people in Zhongdu who would pay for these things. But Li Yanping looked at them with relish, as if he was very interested. As a result, after bargaining, he bought all the things for 100 yuan. Before leaving, the old man stopped Li Yanping. Little brother, you're a good man. I know you piteous grandfather and grandson, so you bought these broken things. But I really feel sorry for doing this. Liamping said with a smile. Old man, what are you talking about? I think these things are very interesting. I'm going to sell them at school. The old man shook his head and didn't argue. He just took out a string of Buddhist beads and handed it to Liamping. This old man doesn't have anything good. This string of Buddhist beads was consecrated by the master, so I'll give it to you. May Buddha bless you. Good people will be rewarded. After a while, Liamping couldn't resist the old man's enthusiasm. Finally, he put the Buddhist beads on his right wrist in front of the old man. After helping the old man to close the stall early, Liamping walked to the nearby bus station with a string of Buddhist beads in his right hand and a bag of things in his left hand. Liamping's family wasn't rich. As an orphan, although he was adopted, he had been taking care of himself since he was a student. Today's 100 yuan was his income for a day's work. It may cause him to eat cabbage and rice in the school cafeteria for several days. But he didn't feel pity. There were always dark corners in the world, but where there was darkness, there was light. Justice, fairness, these were the pursuit of most people in the world. The beauty in the human heart was the most important thing in a person's life. At this time, Liamping thought so in his heart and did so. But he didn't notice that when his mind was churning with these thoughts, the Buddhist beads on his right hand were exuding an inexplicable luster. When Liamping returned to the neighborhood, it was almost midnight. This neighborhood was far from the city. The houses in the neighborhood were very old, and there were all kinds of small advertising flyers everywhere. The small hair salons in front of the entrance were still flashing with ambiguous red lights. The prosperity of the central capital didn't seem to have left any traces here. Most of the residents in this community had already moved out, leaving behind only some migrant workers who were greedy for cheap rent or some old people who were reluctant to leave. Compared to the high-rise buildings in the city, the conditions here could be said to be extremely poor. But this was Liamping's home. When he was a child, he was picked up by his grandmother here and then adopted. Until he went to college, before living in a dormitory, Liamping had always lived with his grandmother. However, his grandmother was getting older and older. Liamping was a little worried about her living at home alone, so he came back twice a week to visit and take care of his grandmother. The entire neighborhood was in disrepair, and most of the remaining residents relied on the management fees. The property management was removed several years ago, and most of the street lamps were broken. In the dim light, the naked eye could only see a rough outline. However, Liamping's footsteps gradually became lighter, because he was so familiar with this place that he could walk out with his eyes closed. And no matter how bad this place was, it was always the place where he grew up. Every blade of grass and every tree around him was filled with memories of his childhood. At this time, a sudden burst of suppressed exclamation came from the green belt. "Who is it?" Liamping shouted in the direction of the sound. There was no response. In Liamping's vision, the surroundings seemed to have become darker. The green belt was silent, and only the sound of the cold wind could be heard. It was as if the exclamation, "just now," was just an illusion. Just as Liamping frowned and wondered if he had been working too much recently and was too tired, another cry for help came. Help! This time he heard it. It was a woman crying for help. After Liamping heard it, he threw down the bag and rushed out without thinking. The woman was stopped halfway through her shout. Liamping could only run in the direction of the sound. After a few steps, a man and a woman lying on the ground came into his sight. The man's back was facing Liamping, and he was lying on the woman's body. He covered the woman's mouth with one hand, and the other hand kept wandering around the woman's body, trying to take off her clothes one by one. He didn't seem to notice that Liamping had already walked behind him. The woman's face couldn't be seen clearly. He could only vaguely hear the sound of crying, but it was blocked by the man's large hands. Someone was raping her. Seeing this, Liamping was furious. He rushed down and pushed the man away, then swung his fist. Apparently, the man who raped Liamping didn't notice that Liamping had rushed behind him. He was suddenly attacked and was stunned. He only knew to wave his hands wildly, blocking Liamping's fists. But he didn't forget to curse. Stop! Stop hitting! Damn. If you hit me again, I'll kill you. This man obviously lacked exercise, and his limbs were weak. He could bully weak women, but he was no match for Li Onping, who had been fighting in the civilian district since he was young. Bang! Li Onping punched the man's face and kicked him to the ground. Hearing the other party's words, his anger surged again. He almost couldn't help but go up and beat the other party again. Yes, I'm beating you. I saw you rape her with my own eyes. Just wait to go to jail. The man sat up from the ground and looked at Li Onping in front of him. Evil fire rushed to his head. Where the fuck did this idiot come from? Don't you know who I am? I can King kill your whole family with just one sentence. Bastard, remember this. I'll kill you and make you beg me like a dog. Humph. Li Onping looked at the man on the ground with disdain and kicked him to the ground again. Seeing that the man was on the ground, breathing in and out, he turned to look at the woman. Miss, are you okay? The woman who was pushed to the ground by Shang Zhenbong was only crying. Li Onping saw that although her clothes were disheveled, she was still wearing her underwear. Obviously, the man didn't succeed. He sighed in relief and asked, "Let me take you to the hospital first? I'll see if you're injured." Seeing that the woman still didn't answer, Li Onping sighed and carefully helped her up. The woman didn't resist and stood up. Although there was no light around, but at such a close distance, Li Onping could already see the other party's appearance. She was indeed a beauty. No wonder she was raped. Li Onping pulled the woman up and was about to help her leave. However, the man who had fallen to the ground just now took the opportunity to get up and limp outside. He didn't forget to turn around and yell at Li Onping, "Just you wait." Seeing that Li Onping was about to chase after him, he was scared and quickly ran away. This kid, Li Onping was about to chase after him, but then he thought about it and asked the woman, "Do you know this man?" Yes. Unexpectedly, the woman answered Li Onping this time. Li Onping was delighted and hurriedly asked, "My name is Li Onping, a college student at Tianjin University. What's your name?" Wei Sure. The woman's voice was still very small, like a frightened deer. While the two were talking, Li Onping had already helped Wei Sure back to the street, and the man who ran away just now had already disappeared. Just as he squatted down to pick up the plastic bag that was thrown away earlier, a burst of bright light mixed with a loud roar came from behind him and Wei Sure. When he turned around, he only saw a white sports car crashing toward him. Li Onping only had time to push Wei Sure away from him before everything went black and he lost consciousness. Chapter 2. The air in the hospital was filled with the smell of disinfectant. Li Onping opened his eyes. Just as he was about to move his body, a heart-wrenching pain hit him. He couldn't help but groan. The nurse on the side was alerted. "You're awake?" The nurse saw Li Onping's twisted appearance from the pain and quickly came over to press him back down. "You were hit by a car and seriously injured. Don't think too much. Take a rest first. I'll get the doctor right away." What followed was a series of checks and greetings. But neither the nurse, the doctor, nor the patient on the side told him about his condition. Only the same look in their eyes made Li Onping's hair stand on end. "Doctor, when will I be better?" Li Onping couldn't stand this look anymore and couldn't help but ask. "Don't get too excited. Your car accident was very serious. When you were sent here, you were basically going to die. Although you survived through a strong will to live, the sequelae of this car accident may accompany you for the rest of your life. You have to be mentally prepared." Li Onping's heart suddenly sank. He then asked urgently, "Doctor, will I be paralyzed?" Sigh. The doctor looked at Li Onping's face and a trace of pity flashed in his eyes. "The central nervous system in your brain is seriously damaged. Even after recovery, your limbs will be weak for a long time and it will be difficult for you to move. If you want to fully recover, it may take 10 years or even decades of exercise and treatment." Li Onping only felt a pain in his chest. It seemed that there was a depression that couldn't be vented no matter what. With a last trace of hope, he looked at the doctor with a bitter face and asked, "If my limbs are weak, how big will the difference be compared to before the car accident?" The doctor shook his head. "You may not be able to get out of bed for more than half an hour a day. After receiving good treatment and exercise, you may be able to extend this time with crutches." As if afraid to see Li Onping's desperate eyes, The doctor left the ward after he finished speaking. Only Li Onping was left lying on the bed in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. It wasn't until the police came in front of Li Onping that he came back to his senses. Looking at the police in front of him, his eyes shone with unprecedented brilliance. "Did you catch the person who hit me? There was also a girl called Wei Shishir with me. Did you guys find her?" A total of 2 policemen came. One of them was a young policeman called Geng Zhong. He looked at Li Onping, who was lying on the hospital bed, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. "Don't worry. The Wei Shishir you mentioned and the driver who caused the accident are already under our control. The nature of this car accident is extremely bad. We will definitely punish the culprit severely." Later, Li Onping found out that the person who hit him with the car was the man he caught raping. The man's name was Shang Jinbong, and he was later arrested by the police in the suburbs. However, after he was arrested, he did not say a word. No matter how the police interrogated him, he did not say a word. He only asked the police to let him make the call. Fortunately, Li Onping pushed Wei Shishir away at that time, allowing her to escape unscathed. Thus, after the police heard Wei Shishir's confession, they understood most of the situation based on the clues left behind at the scene. Now, he was here to get Li Onping's confession. At that moment, Li Onping told the 2 policemen everything he remembered. After getting Li Onping's confession, he was not as excited as the young policeman. The older policeman already had a bad feeling in his heart. His name was Song Sishan, and he had been a policeman for more than 10 years. The sports car, the rape, and Shang Jinbong's strange behavior of not saying a word and asking to make the call made Song Sishan instinctively feel a sense of danger. After hesitating for a long time, he still did not tell Li Onping these things. He could only hope that these were all his misconceptions. After the 2 policemen left, Li Onping's originally depressed mood became somewhat uplifted. This time, the evidence was conclusive. Shang Jinbong was definitely going to jail. Not only that, he also had to compensate Li Onping a large sum of money. Justice would be served in the end, although his body could no longer do any physical activity. The compensation from this car accident was definitely enough for Li Onping to finish college. And now, society was a technological society. Even if he could not leave home, Li Onping believed that relying on his own talent and the knowledge in his mind, he could still make a name for himself. Besides, he still had a wheelchair. In the future, he could also use a wheelchair to go out. Besides, the doctor also said that after treatment and exercise, there was a possibility of recovery. Li Onping kept comforting himself, as if the injury was really not a big deal. However, there was only a trace of gray in his eyes that could not be removed. Regret? Maybe. Half a month had passed. Li Onping could no longer remember how many times his grandmother had cried in his hospital bed. After Anna came once on the 3rd day of the car accident and learned of his condition, she never appeared again. His classmates and friends had also come once, and the school had even organized a donation for him. However, after the school leaders were interviewed by the reporters, there was no more news about this matter. Li Onping still remembered the strange voices of his uncle and aunt, who were his grandmother's biological son and daughter-in-law, when they came to the ward. This ward costs a lot of money every day, right? The old lady's monthly pension is only so much. Now that it has been handed over to the hospital, what will happen to her coffin money in the future? Mom, this is not something that can be solved in a day or 2. I asked the doctor. This kid is equivalent to being paralyzed. He is a useless person. Are you going to raise him for the rest of his life? What do you mean by waiting for the court to award compensation? Do you think I'm stupid? Any lawsuit now will result in a sentence of 5 to 6 years. By then, it will be too late. I don't care. Anyway, if you want to raise this bastard, then you don't have me as your biological son. Let this useless person send you to your grave. Faced with such a question, Li Onping wanted to say something. However, reality was like a huge rock pressing down on his body. He watched the 2 leave and could not say a word. The days became more and more depressing. Being paralyzed mentally was more terrible than physical. It was more hopeless than Li Onping imagined. Fortunately, there was still hope in this world. Now, the only joy in his life was reading the news online. Sports car, rich second generation, rape, bravery for justice, and car accident. As soon as Li Onping's news appeared, it quickly grabbed the headlines of major news and newspapers. The internet was full of people discussing this matter. Of course, the public opinion was also on the side of Wei Shi and Li Onping. Every development of the incident, every report by the reporters, and every praise from people became the greatest joy in Li Onping's life. On the internet, there was even a theme website for this incident. Countless people were waving flags and shouting, hoping that the government would punish the murderer severely. Therefore, the thing he looked forward to the most now was the court hearing. Every day, he put his phone on the bedside, waiting for the court to summon him. However, the strange thing was that Wei Shi had not come to see him since his car accident. She did not even call him, which made him somewhat puzzled. And Uncle and Auntie, after saying those words to Grandma, actually appeared again. The two of them nodded and bowed as they followed behind an arrogant middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes with flattering expressions. "You're Li Onping, right?" The man raised his head high and looked at Li Onping arrogantly. "I am Su Lichuan from G-Men Law Firm. Here is 1 million. The man took out a check from his pocket. "As long as you slightly change your testimony, he is yours." Li Onping sneered angrily. "Oh, how do I want to change it?" The man did not seem to notice the abnormality in Li Onping's tone, or perhaps he was too confident in the bank card in his hand. He said to himself, "It was too dark at the time. You didn't see what the person looked like. Later, you found out that the car owner was Shang Jinbao, so you thought that person was Shang Jinbao. In fact, after thinking about it, that person didn't look like Shang Jinbao. You could just say that." Seeing Li Onping reach out his hand, Su Lichuan smiled as if he expected it and handed the bank card to Li Onping. But the next scene was obviously out of his expectations. Li Onping folded the bank card in half and threw it at Su Lichuan's feet. "Don't even think about changing my testimony. Tell Shang Jinbao to prepare to spend the rest of his life in prison. As for the compensation, I will naturally ask you for it after the lawsuit." After saying that, Li Onping looked at Su Lichuan with a face full of mockery and satisfaction. He felt great satisfaction in his heart. He felt great satisfaction in his heart as everyone looked at him in surprise. Looking at his uncle, Annie, and Su Lichuan's shocked and angry eyes, Li Onping puffed up his chest and felt proud of his answer. At this moment, his body seemed to be full of strength. He felt that he had a clear conscience. Su Lichuan took a deep breath, and his face became very ugly. He looked deeply at Li Onping and said word by word, "Good, good, good. I hope you don't regret it." After saying that, he left without looking back. After Su Lichuan left, Li Onping faced his uncle and auntie's angry faces. "Li Onping, are you crazy?" The auntie spat on his face. "You?" Li Onping looked at the auntie in surprise. He didn't expect her to do this. "Li Onping, what do you want?" Li Onping's uncle grabbed Li Onping's shoulders with both hands and shook him fiercely. "Our family also raised you to this age? Is this the most benevolent? My mom is in her 70s, and now she has to come every day to take your shit and pee. Do you want to make her anxious to death?" "But the auntie poked Li Onping's forehead and scolded. "You little bastard, what else do you have to say? What else can you do besides causing trouble since you were young? Do you know how much trouble you caused this time? Shang Jinbao's father is called Shang Anghua, the mayor of Zhongdu City. Do you have to kill her whole family to be at ease?" The auntie cried and hit Li Onping's body. She didn't stop until his grandmother came to deliver food. Then there was another quarrel. During this time, Li Onping sat on the bed in a daze. His eyes were unfocused, and he felt a throbbing pain in his heart. He couldn't tell whether it was because of the wound or because of what the auntie just said. Why is this happening? Why do I have to be scolded by my own family when I insist on justice? Is it wrong to insist on justice? Li Onping was only 20 years old this year, but in the past 20 years, he could say with a clear conscience that he was a righteous person who pursued justice. Is it wrong for me to be brave? Is it wrong for me to stick to my principles? I don't accept bribes. I don't associate with bad people. Is it wrong? Why do I make my grandmother suffer? Why do I make Uncle and Annie turn against me? No, I'm not wrong. Li Onping's eyes flashed, as if he had figured something out. As long as I win the lawsuit, after Shang Jinbong is sentenced, after the court awards the compensation, the facts will prove that I'm right. The compensation will be enough for my grandmother, uncle, and Annie to live a good life. There is nothing wrong with upholding justice. It's just the darkness before the dawn. On the other side of Zhongdu City, in a magnificent apartment, Shang Jinbong was lying on the sofa, playing with the remote control in boredom, but his eyes didn't look at the TV. It wasn't until the door was opened and he saw a middle-aged man walk in that he jumped up. "Dad, why did you give that kid money? He dared to hit me." Shang Jinbong rushed in front of the man and said impatiently, "As long as you give me 100,000, I'll immediately let Brother Hua and the others kill that kid. I'll see how he testifies in court." The man, who is Shang Jinbong's father, Shang Onghua, coldly stared at Shang Jinbong. "Haven't you caused enough trouble? You've completely disgraced me this time. And how many times do I have to say, those hoodlums, why are you hanging out with them? They're all good-for-nothings. They'll only lead you astray." Shang Jinbong obviously didn't dare talk back and could only listen to his father's scolding until a phone call interrupted him. "Hello, old Sue, how's it going?" "And I got it." Shang Onghua hung up the phone and his brows deeply wrinkled. Shang Jinbong carefully looked at Shang Onghua's face and asked, "Dad, is it Uncle Sue who called? How's it going?" "Li Onping won't take the money. He said he'll never change his testimony." Hearing this, Shang Jinbong immediately became enraptured and shouted, "I told you this kid is restless, didn't I? Dad, he thinks the money is too little and wants to blackmail us. Just listen to me and kill him. Leave it to me. I won't leave any evidence behind." Bang! Shang Onghua slammed his fist on the table and scolded, "It's all your fault, you bastard. Stay at home for this month. When this is over, go abroad immediately and don't let me see you again. I'll be responsible for the next thing. Don't mess around, and don't let your brother know. He's at a critical moment now." "Yes, I got it." Seeing that Shang Onghua was angry, Shang Jinbong immediately lowered his head and became well-behaved. However, he was secretly happy. "Ha ha ha, when I go abroad, I'll be a bird flying in the sky and a fish swimming in the sea. Dad won't be able to control me anymore. I can also go play with my brother, huh?" Chapter 3. He wanted to rape me, and then Shang Jinbong came to save me. In the end, he wanted to kill us, so Shang Jinbong hit him with the car. Wei Shishir pointed at Li Onping and said coldly, "He's the rapist." There was a 360-degree reversal in the development of the whole incident. Li Onping never dreamed of such a reversal. After leaving the court, Li Onping's mind was blank. Only Shang Jinbong's wild laughter before he left was like a knife stabbing into his chest, making him breathless. According to news from this station, there was a new development in the rape and car accident case that had attracted the public's attention. The rapist pretended to be a hero? Was it the police's malfeasance? Or was it the lack of system? Some people revealed that Li Onping was originally a gangster. In the past, he often beat up the grandmother who adopted him and took her pension for himself. This time, it was expected that he would be tempted by her. It was reported that after the incident, Li Onping threatened the victim, saying that if she didn't do as he said, he would kill her whole family. Shang Jinbong said that after the incident, Li Onping called him and said that if he didn't give him 5 million, he would sue him until he went to jail. After receiving the news of Li Onping's rape case, Tianjin University expelled him on the same day. They said that the school still needed to be strengthened. Moral education for students. Shang Jinbong acted bravely for a just cause this time, but he was framed. We need to think deeply about it. This shows that there is still a big loophole in our country's judicial system. News after news appeared on TV and the internet. Li Onping's heart became colder and colder. Every time the nurses and doctors in the hospital looked at him strangely, his body couldn't help but tremble. "I'm not lying. I'm not lying. Shang Jinbong wronged me. Wei Shishir, that be asterisk tch, she was bought by them." But no one believed him. Only his grandmother still took care of him as usual and did everything for him. His grandmother sat by the bed and advised, "Shaoan, it's okay. Good people will be rewarded. I believe that you were wronged. We'll go appeal again." The truth will come to light. But things were only going in a bad direction. The court's decision was quickly released. Shang Jinbong was acquitted, but Li Onping, if he didn't appeal, he would face more than 10 years in jail. Considering that he was seriously injured and wouldn't go to jail, there would be someone to watch over him 24 hours a day. His medical expenses also became a huge burden. Dr. Song, please give me a few more days. I'll go and borrow some money right away. I'll give it to you as soon as I get it. Grandma held the doctor's hands and begged. The number of wrinkles that had appeared on his face during this period of time was even more than the number of wrinkles that had appeared in the past 30 years. Her twos to her twos, to her, to her, to her, to her. Her to her, to her, to her, to her, to her, to his, to her, to her, to her, to her, to her, to her to see. And to be honest, people like Li Onping don't worry about him. Just let him fend for himself. Grandma just kept begging Dr. Song. Seeing that the other party was unmoved, she suddenly knelt down and kowtowed. I beg you, Dr. Song. Onping was raised by me since he was a child. I can't just look at him and leave him alone. Dr. Song was shocked and hurriedly helped his grandmother up. Hey, get up quickly. It's not good for you. Hey, okay, 1 month. The hospital can only give you 1 more month. After a month, if you can't get the money, you really can't stay here. Sorry, all the evidence has been tampered with. The young policeman, Gung Zhong, came to the ward. His fists were clenched white. He was Li Onping's only friend and the only policeman who was still investigating the case. The other policemen had already taken the opportunity to avoid him, but he was just a rookie policeman. How could he reverse the case for Li Onping? Every time he came to visit Li Onping, he could keep cursing Shang Jinbong and Wei Sure. That bitch. After she came out of the court, she got in Shang Anbang's car and left. What a bitch. In addition to his friends, Li Onping was lying in the hospital, but strangers came to him almost every day. You scum. A bowl of water was poured on his head, but he was indifferent. You scum, why don't you die? A man broke through the police's blockade, came to Li Onping's bed, and gave him a punch. Li Onping silently endured. I'm sorry. We have to take back the school's donation. Also, this is your diploma. The school representative came to his bed and said with a sarcastic tone. Li Onping did not respond. He was lying on the bed like a dead person. Only the tears in the corner of his eyes showed that he was still alive. Li Onping is innocent. This is obviously Shang Anbang and Wei Sure colluding to frame him. Shang Anbang's father is the mayor of Zhongdu. Li Onping was framed. The OP is brainless. No explanation. Li Onping, this scum, has someone to back him up. It's an eye-opener. The facts are in front of us. Li Onping's rape and murder case is irrefutable. The OP is such a sensationalist and cheats people of experience. It's really disgusting. Everyone don't reply. It's a scam. Li Onping posted on various major websites, looking for his last comfort, but his words were quickly drowned out by countless saliva. The other party did everything. Not only did they bribe the government, but they also did not let go of the internet. A large number of internet pushers cooperated to spread rumors. Even if some rational people spoke up and suspected that Li Onping was wronged, they were also quickly drowned in the vast internet water army. Li Onping persisted alone and went to many well-known forums and websites. In the end, his account was only banned. He had almost no social connections now. From elementary school to university, no one was willing to have anything to do with a scum like him. The only one was the young policeman, Gung Zhong, who often came to see him. After scolding Shang Jinbong and Wei Sure, he always said solemnly, "Don't worry, don't give up. I've been investigating in private. One day, the case will be reversed." Perhaps this was Li Onping's only hope now. A few weeks later, on a stormy night, the big raindrops hit the glass window, making continuous patter. Gung Zhong walked into Li Onping's ward again. His face was very ugly. What's wrong? Li Onping looked at him, but was not worried. No matter how bad things were, could it be worse than him now? One would say later, you have to calm down. Don't get agitated. What's wrong? Did I add to the crime again? Your grandmother, she's in trouble. After Li Onping heard this sentence, he only felt dizzy, and his whole person almost fainted. He forced himself to stay calm and stared at Geng Zhong. What's going on? Although you gave up on treatment, your grandmother didn't. She didn't give up. She helped raise money for your medical fees behind your back. She sold lunchboxes on the streets alone. Yesterday, when she was cooking at home, she got gas poisoning. Good job, Brother Yang. Shang Jinbong nodded in satisfaction and said to the bald man in front of him, "This toast is to you." "It's nothing, young Master Shang. If it weren't for you taking care of us brothers, we wouldn't be here today." In a private room in a luxurious hotel, Shang Jinbong and 3 youths who looked like gangsters were sitting together, drinking and chatting. "I'm being watched closely by my dad right now. I might have to leave the country soon. If it weren't for you, Brother Hua, I would have suffocated to death in my stomach," Shang Jinbong said with a red face and a slurred tongue. Opposite him, Bro Hua was all smiles. How would we dare to neglect young Master Shang's orders? "Come, Wolf, old Nua, let's toast to young Master Shang." The other 2 youths also came up to Shang Jinbong to toast. At first glance, one could tell that these 2 men were strong and muscular. They looked like bodybuilders with muscles all over their bodies. Now, they kept pouring wine into Shang Jinbong's mouth and kept praising him. After eating and drinking, Shang Jinbong suddenly sighed. Bro Hua saw this and immediately asked, "What's wrong, young Master Shang? Is there something bothering you?" "I killed the old one, but left the young one." Shang Jinbong sighed. "It's a pity that the kid is being watched by the police in the hospital. He got lucky this time." Hearing this, Bro Hua suddenly waved his hand. Wolf and old Nua walked out of the room to make sure no one was eavesdropping. "Young Master Shang, actually, it's not like we don't have a solution for this person being watched by the police." "Oh." Shang Jinbong heard this, and his face lit up. "Bro Hua, you have a way." "What way do I have?" "If young Master Shang's father is willing to do it again, that kid will be squashed to death immediately." Bro Hua flattered. Let my father put that kid in jail. He already scolded me to death. How can I let him do it again?" Halfway through his sentence, Shang Jinbong's phone suddenly rang. "Hello?" Got it. Hearing the caller's voice, Shang Onping smiled. "Baby, I'm having a meal with a friend. You want to buy a LV bag? No problem. Just use the credit card I gave you." It's not a problem to buy the whole shop. After a round of mushy talk, Shang Onping reluctantly hung up the phone. Bro Hua curiously asked, "Young Master Shang, a call from your girlfriend? What a loving couple. I didn't expect young Master Shang to dote on his girlfriend so much." Shang Jinbong laughed. "Hey, sure, and I got to know each other after a fight. Well, I want to look for her to change her testimony. We chatted for a while and immediately hit it off. She must be after your money." Although he was cursing in his heart, Bro Hua didn't dare to show it. "Young Master Shang, about that kid Lianping. All right, Bro Hua. Do you have a way? If you have a way to kill him, I'll give you 1 million as payment for your tea." Shang Jinbong patted his chest and said, "All right, young Master Shang. With your words, us brothers will fight for you even if we have to sacrifice our lives. Money is secondary. The key is that us brothers can't take this line down." Bro Hua's eyes lit up as he said this. At that moment, the 2 of them became intimate again. After a few glasses of white wine, the atmosphere was lively. The 2 of them then went to the nightclub with their arms around each other's shoulders. Chapter 4. The sky was white, and the ground was white. Other than white, it was still white. Lianping walked on the white ground alone. Apart from Lianping, there was nothing else in the vast expanse of white. His eyes were empty, and his face was full of confusion. Just like that, he walked alone on this piece of land. He kept walking. Suddenly a black crow flew over his head. Caw! Caw! The crow stopped beside him, tilted its head, and looked at Lianping, who kept walking forward. It seemed to be wondering why the other party kept walking. Caw! Caw! The crow flew to Lianping's shoulder and looked at him quietly. Lianping seemed to be unaware. His face was expressionless as he continued to walk forward. The crow suddenly opened its mouth wide. Its upper and lower jaws unbelievably opened 180 degrees. Blood kept flowing out of the corner of its mouth. Its whole mouth looked like it was about to be torn apart. The big mouth bit toward Li Onping's head. Li Onping did not resist. His neck was broken, and his entire head was swallowed. Blood spurted out of his chest like a fountain from the wound. Ah! Li Onping woke up on the hospital bed. How many times? Ever since he lost the lawsuit, he had lost count of how many times he had had the same nightmare. Every time, he would be eaten by a crow. However, after waking up from a nightmare today, Li Onping did not worry or think anymore. Because, compared to the world in the nightmare, the real world was the real hell. Grandma is really dead. He screamed in pain. His limbs curled up like a pitiful worm lying on the bed. My only family member is also dead. Am I really wrong? Why is upholding justice wrong? Why is pursuing justice like this? Why is God punishing me like this? Li Onping wanted to cry, but his tears had already dried up. He wanted to hit the bedboard with his hands, but he could not even raise his hands. He even needed help to urinate and defecate now. He could only whimper in a low voice every noon and night. He punished himself in the nightmare. Li Onping slammed his head on the bed. Only physical pain could slightly alleviate his mental despair. Outside the ward, the police officer sent by the court to watch over him knocked hard on the door, making a loud bang. He scolded, "You're so stupid. Stop yelling. This is a ward. Don't disturb other people's rest." Li Onping did not respond, but he did stop shouting. When he had thought of all the ways, when all hope had disappeared, when his only family member had died, Li Onping was completely disheartened. He thought of, he was dead. Don't you want revenge? At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. Li Onping looked around in bewilderment, but did not see anyone. Don't look around. I'm in your heart. I'll ask you again. Don't you want revenge? The voice appeared again and said in a tempting tone. This time Li Onping heard it. The other party's voice actually rang out in his mind. However, perhaps because of the great change he had encountered, or perhaps because he thought he was hallucinating, he wasn't surprised at all. He didn't even respond to the voice. Do you want to be immersed in sorrow? So decadent? The voice saw that Li Onping did not answer him and had to ask again. If you punish yourself like this, you will only let your real enemy go unpunished. Li Onping said with a bitter face, Revenge? Who will I look for revenge? I'm just a cripple. I even need someone to help me eat or go to the toilet. I can't even survive, so how can I talk about revenge? Hee. The voice sneered. Your body is not a problem. As long as you want revenge, I can help you. Li Onping's heart flashed with a trace of fire. His chest seemed to be burning. How can you help me? Don't ask too much. Let me ask you first. In order to heal your body, how much are you willing to pay? Li Onping said impatiently. I have nothing left. As long as you can heal my body, I'm willing to pay anything. He did not notice that the original topic of revenge had unknowingly changed to healing his body. The voice heard Li Onping's words and did not immediately respond. A few minutes later, when Li Onping almost thought that everything was just an illusion, the voice said meaningfully, What you think is very precious may be useless to me, but some things that are worthless in your eyes are very important to me. Li Onping did not understand the other party's meaning. He only heard the other party continue to speak. The policeman outside, his name is Long Tao. He's poor, eating, and waiting to die. These words are the best description of him. His classmates in the same period got promoted and got rich. He's the only one who is still fighting on the front line, living on a meager salary. He's over 30 years old, and he doesn't even have a wife. The only thing he can do is to complain about the injustice of society and the incompetence of his superiors. What does he have to do with me? Li Onping asked puzzledly. Also, how do you know about his situation? I'll tell you the reason later. Right now, I just need you to touch his body with your right hand. Li Onping's tone was somewhat hesitant. Is that all? The voice laughed, like the whisper of a demon. How can it be so simple? I just want to borrow your hand to knock him out. When I'm healing him, I don't want to be disturbed. Okay, I'll do as you say. After a while, the two of them stopped talking. The entire ward seemed quiet. Li Onping turned his body sideways and slowly rolled toward the inside of the bed. Because his limbs were nearly paralyzed and he was wrapped in a blanket, he moved very slowly. With a thud, Li Onping fell off the bed and hit the floor, making a soft sound. "What's going on?" Long Tao, who was at the door, heard the crash and immediately opened the door and rushed in. The bed was parallel to the door, and Lianping was falling toward the inside of the bed. Long Tao, who came in, could not see him for a moment. Worried that something had happened, he rushed to the other side of the bed. However, just as he saw Lianping fall to the ground, the other party grabbed his leg with one hand. "What are you doing?" Anna's heart felt a little anxious. After visiting Lianping last time, she happened to be going abroad to study. This was a way for universities to send students to foreign universities to attend other universities' courses after receiving money. Originally, she wanted to ask Lianping to go to the aquarium with her before the study trip. Unexpectedly, Lianping was involved in a car accident. Then, when Anna returned to Zhongdu after a month of study trip, Lianping had become a scum that everyone wanted to beat. She hesitated for a long time and finally came to see him that night. "At least, I have to hear him tell me what happened." In any case, Anna could not reconcile the usual bright, kind, and justice-seeking Lianping with the criminal in the news. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the ward with apprehension. "What did you do?" Lianping suppressed his anger and asked. "Oh, you don't have to shout so loudly. You can directly communicate with me through your mind." The voice replied maliciously. "As for what I did, hey, from the beginning to the end, weren't you the one who did it?" Lianping looked at the body lying on the ground and said incredulously, "You killed him. How could you kill him? You said that you just knocked him out." "Hey, it's really disappointing. After experiencing so many things, don't you have any awareness? The world is constantly changing, and the only thing that remains unchanged is the stupidity of human beings. Their filth and ugliness is simply more disgusting to me than a cesspool. Do you know how this policeman sees you? In his eyes, you're just a pile of garbage. He has sold a lot of information about you to the media. He even had the idea of torturing you more than once. When you experience more things, you will realize that there are countless sins hidden behind everyone's back. Successful people will be blamed, hostile, and jealous, while the losers will be despised, bullied, and enslaved. All human beings, consciously or unconsciously, show malice to others. In the end, no matter who it is, what he can get in the end is only boredom and helplessness. Every word of the voice was like an evil whisper. Lianping felt like he was receiving some kind of cult sermon, but he still couldn't let it go. Just a moment ago, a life was lost in his hands. Just as he touched Long Tao's leg with his hand, the other side immediately fell down. A wave that was hard to detect with the naked eye rushed from Long Tao's body to the prayer beads in Lianping's right hand. The prayer beads should have been confiscated by the policeman, but now it suddenly appeared. Lianping looked at the prayer beads that suddenly appeared on his right wrist and seemed to have noticed something. "You're inside this prayer bead? What kind of evil thing are you? I'm going to destroy you. I can't let you harm people anymore." Lianping pulled the prayer beads out. "This prayer bead is just a temporary shelter, and now I found a better one." The voice laughed proudly. "Moreover, are you sure you want to stop cooperating with me? Your body can be healed immediately." Lianping threw the prayer beads out of the window. "No need. I won't listen to anything you say, you devil." I said, "I'm no longer in the prayer beads." The voice still appeared in Lianping's mind. "It's your ignorance, kindness, and hatred that woke me up, and the policeman's death was also caused by you. You can no longer withdraw." "I can, as long as I don't promise you anything." Just as the two were arguing, Anna walked into the room. She opened her eyes wide and looked at Lianping and Long Tao, who had fallen on the ground. She said in surprise, "What happened to you guys?" "Kill her. She witnessed everything. You must kill her immediately to silence her. Put your hand on her body. I will eat her soul." The voice bewitched Lianping. "Don't even think about it." Lianping shouted at Anna. "Anna, quickly help him up. He suddenly fell ill. Quickly get the doctor to take a look at him." He was still hoping that Long Tao wasn't dead. Oh. Anna seemed to have just reacted. She ran over in a panic and wanted to help Long Tao's body up. "Don't worry about that." Lianping quickly stopped her afraid that she would be attacked. Quickly go find the doctor. He's not breathing anymore. Ow. Okay. Anna was at a loss. After hearing Li Anping's order, she subconsciously did as she was told and ran out of the door to find the doctor. But as soon as she went out, she felt like she had hit a mountain. She was pushed back by a huge force. Lao Nuo, it seems like we came at the right time. Chapter 5. Wolf slowly walked into the ward, looking at Li Anping and Anna with an unbridled gaze. He had a lit cigarette in his right hand, completely ignoring the hospital's no smoking sign. Looking at Long Tao, who seemed to be unconscious, Wolf broke into a smile. I was wondering how much it would cost to bribe this police officer. I didn't expect you to save it for me. After saying that, he casually tossed the cigarette aside and used one hand to grab Anna, who had been pushed to the ground by him. Anna was about to scream, but Wolf covered her mouth with his hand. She felt a strong force coming from his hand, making her unable to move. Shoo, listen to me, don't scream. Wolf stood behind Anna, covering her mouth with one hand and hugging her waist with the other. He breathed out a mouthful of hot air on Anna's neck, and his eyes became a little greedy. You're not bad looking. What a pity. How could you fall in love with an unlucky cripple with your looks? Anna's body trembled, being hugged from behind by a strange man. Her eyes were full of fear, and she could only look at Li Anping for help. Who are you? What do you want? Li Anping glared at Wolf and the others, and at the same time roared in his heart. Hurry up and save him. I know you can do it. The voice said nonchalantly, but why should I do that? This woman saw us kill Long Tao. If he is killed now, it will save us the trouble of silencing him. You devil. Li Anping's gaze softened. Let him go. You're here for me, right? She has nothing to do with me. Ha! You were glaring at me so fiercely just now. I thought you were going to fight me to the death, hero. Wolf laughed wildly. He stuck out his tongue and licked Anna's cheek. But I won't let him go. What can you do? Seeing Li Anping lying on the ground with eyes that looked like they were about to spit fire, Wolf's expression became even more smug. All right, Wolf. You should have let this woman go just now. Old Nuo said expressionlessly as he followed behind Wolf and closed the door to the ward. Compared to Wolf's hooligan tone, he sounded more like a professional killer. Since there's someone holding the fort this time, it's fine to take one more person away, Wolf said nonchalantly. At the same time, he touched her stomach with one hand and slowly moved towards Anna's upper body. Anna, who was being hugged tightly, felt the invasion of the other party, but she had no strength to resist, especially in front of Li Anping. She was shocked and scared, and tears kept flowing from the corners of her eyes. Since the other party called out their own nickname so easily, it's obvious that they don't plan to let us go. We have to find a chance to kill them. In Li Anping's mind, the voice sounded again. Seeing that Li Anping did not react, he continued to urge, these two are not ordinary people. We have to strike first to gain the upper hand. Do as I say. We'll sneak attack and kill one of them first. Only then will we have a chance. I can't kill them. I just have to stop them. Idiot. Their conversation was naturally not heard by others. Seeing Wolf's expression, old Nuo frowned. Don't complicate matters. The Shang family is already giving us a lot of pressure this time. You don't want to make Brother Hua angry, right? Wolf looked at old Nuo with slight displeasure. He grabbed Anna's neck with one hand and lifted her over his head. Then we'll play later. With that, Wolf swung Anna violently and smashed her against the wall. He allowed her to smash her head open before she fainted on the ground. Blood flowed out from the back of Anna's head and covered the ground. What are you doing? This scene shocked Li Anping. Seeing the other party smashing Anna against the wall without a care, he finally realized that the two people in front of him were not ordinary criminals. They were more unscrupulous and cruel. You still have the time to care about others? Do you know that someone paid money to take your life? Wolf walked step by step in front of Li Anping. He squatted down and looked at Li Anping, who was lying on the ground as if he was looking at a toy. Old Nuo behind him said coldly, hurry up and do it. Don't say anything unnecessary. Wolf, who was squatting in front of Li Anping, shrugged his shoulders. He grabbed Li Onping's hair with one hand and raised his head to eye level. Then let's not waste any more words. We'll just kill you directly. Dong! It was a loud bang. Wolf held Li Onping's head and smashed it against the ground. Li Onping felt that his head was about to explode from the pain. Red blood flowed out from his ears and nose like dye. His consciousness started to blur, and his vision was covered with a layer of red. There was only a crazy voice in his mind. Ability users, damn it. They are ability users. I can't absorb their souls now. Hurry up and let go of control of your body, or we will all die. Li Onping almost fainted from the impact. If the owner of the voice hadn't used his own energy to protect his brain, he would have died long ago. How could he answer the other party's request? Damn it. Be *starred, you idiot. Why did I choose you? The voice cursed angrily, but it couldn't change the current situation. Wolf picked up Li Onping's head and looked at his bruised and swollen face. He was a little dissatisfied and said, "Your head is really hard. A normal person would have exploded into tofu after being smashed by me like that. If it were any other time, I might have let you go, but this time, the other party paid quite a lot of money. I can only smash you again." He laughed and said, "Those rich people are really cruel. They can't even let a cripple like you go." Hearing this, Li Onping's eyes flashed. His groggy brain seemed to clear up in an instant. He forced his eyes open and asked intermittently, "You said, old woman? My grandmother, she was done by you?" "Oh. You're still conscious?" Wolf said in surprise. "That's amazing. That hit just now was enough to crack your skull. Your brain is already bleeding badly, but you can still speak?" Wolf poked Li Onping's head in surprise. When he heard the other party cry out in pain, he smiled cruelly and said, "All right, as a reward, I'll let you die knowing the truth. Your grandmother was also done by one of our people, but it wasn't me. But the one who paid is the same person. You should know him. Shang, Jun, Bang." Hearing Li Onping say these three words, Wolf didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. It was as if he had made a huge mistake. The commotion in the room finally attracted the attention of others. Footsteps could be heard in the corridor. "Stop fooling around," old Nua urged. "Hurry up and settle this. If someone sees us, it'll be hard to explain to Brother Hua. Can you help me get revenge?" Amidst the soundless cries, Li Onping could only see a black shadow moving around his body. Sure, as long as you make a deal with me." "A devil's deal? What else do you want from me? I have nothing left." "Do you still have a right to refuse?" "All right, as long as you help me get revenge. Then as a reward, you can have anything you want, be it my body or my soul." Ha. After hearing Li Onping's words, the voice first smiled, then laughed louder and louder, more and more pleased with itself, until Li Onping's entire mind was filled with the other party's laughter. Wolf was just about to press Li Onping's head down when he realized that his hand was being held in a death grip. Li Onping held Wolf's arm and raised his head to look at Wolf, his eyes bloodshot. Strange noises came from his body, as if something was crawling in his body. "I don't need your soul, nor your body. I just want to make a deal with you. The soul power I just absorbed is enough to give you superhuman physical strength for a short period of time, but it can only last for 5 minutes. You have to kill them in 5 minutes and then escape." The voice's words were still echoing in Li Onping's mind. Then, a cruel and evil power began to spread throughout his body. His physical injuries healed at an incredible speed, and his strength increased. His muscle fibers became thicker and his bones stronger, allowing him to exert more strength. Li Onping felt as if he had been reborn. His physical condition was many times better than it had been in the past. "Ah!" he roared, raised his fist, and punched Wolf's chest. Wolf didn't back down and punched Li Onping in the stomach. Wolf thought, "My ability is muscle enhancement. You want to compete with me in strength?" But the result was the opposite of what he had expected. Wolf's chest was almost cracked, and half of his ribs were broken. He kept vomiting blood. His opponent, on the other hand, looked unscathed. It was as if Wolf's attack had only scratched an itch. At this moment, Wolf could no longer care about anything else. With a loud cry, his arms swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were almost twice as thick as before, and after barely managing to knock Li Onping's punch away, he quickly retreated. Old Nuo had already reacted, but he didn't expect that Wolf, an ability user, would be defeated so easily. Seeing Wolf retreat, he pulled out the dagger at his waist and stabbed it at Li Onping's waist. Kill them all. Eat them all. Their souls, their bodies, nothing will be left. At this time, Li Onping's eyes were red, and his expression was crazed. He only had eyes for Wolf. Letting old Nuo stab the dagger into his waist, he pushed him away. With a kick, he rushed towards Wolf again. Holding Wolf's shoulder, he bit at his opponent's neck. The pain only made him crazier. Li Onping didn't know how to fight properly. He was just following his instincts. With a tearing sound, he bit Wolf's neck. Pulling and pulling, he tore off a large piece of flesh. Wolf's scream echoed throughout the hospital. His neck was almost broken. Blood spurted out from the wound like a fountain, dyeing him and Li Onping red. But Wolf was an ability user, and he could control and strengthen his muscles. He didn't die immediately from such a serious injury. Instead, he struggled even harder. He was scared stiff by Li Onping's craziness, and the only thing on his mind was to survive. As the flesh on his neck was torn off, he pounded his fists at Li Onping like a madman. Finally, taking advantage of his opponent's retreat, he broke through the door and fled without looking back. With a squelch, old Nuo took advantage of this opportunity to stab Li Onping in the back, piercing his lung. Li Onping roared angrily. He turned around and sent old Nuo flying with a slap. Then he rushed out with Wolf. Old Nuo was just an ordinary person. Although he was a retired Special Forces soldier, his physical fitness couldn't compare to an ability user's. After being sent flying by Li Onping's powerful slap, he felt like his bones were about to fall apart. He was dizzy and couldn't stand up. When he came back to his senses, he heard the crisp sound of bones and flesh in the corridor outside the ward. He also heard Wolf's increasingly weak roar and the screams of the other patients and nurses. 10 seconds later, when Wolf's face was covered in blood and there were teeth marks on his forehead, he finally crawled back to the door. He reached out his hand to old Nuo, as if to ask for help. But before he could call for help, his head was grabbed by a bloody hand and dragged back. Only a series of chewing sounds could be heard from outside the door. After a heart-wrenching scream, the sound stopped abruptly. Monster! Seeing this, old Nuo swallowed hard and suddenly jumped out of the window. He couldn't go out anymore. Outside the window was only the 3rd floor. With his skills, he would at most suffer some minor injuries. After rolling on the grass downstairs to ease the impact, old Nuo ran toward the hospital entrance in a panic. 5 minutes later, a large number of police cars arrived. The only things they could find were a fainted girl, a police officer's corpse, and a pile of mangled remains. Chapter 6. The dim light, the pungent smell. Although it was not the first time he came to the morgue, Huang Linjun still felt uncomfortable all over. Pushing open the door of the morgue, he saw Wolf's body lying on the autopsy table. The surrounding trays were still filled with blood, pieces of meat, and some tools that Huang Linjun could not name. The victim was found in the hospital yesterday. Originally, this kind of murder case was not under Huang Linjun's jurisdiction, but because of the unusual nature of the case, the police chief of Zhongdu City pulled him out of bed with a phone call. How violent! Looking at the body in front of him again, Huang Linjun could not help but frown. The limbs were broken, the neck was torn open, and there were large areas of tissue contusions all over the body. There was even a hole in the skull. If he had not analyzed the case beforehand, Huang Linjun would have thought that this was the work of a psychopathic murderer. He stood by the autopsy table and waited for a while. Then the forensic doctor, Zhang Wei, walked in. They actually called you over? Haha, the guys in the key case investigation unit can finally be released. Zhang Wei was a little surprised to see Huang Linjun looking at the body. He said as he tidied up the equipment, I have already sent the autopsy report to your email. You still have the mood to look at this pile of minced meat? You should know that the 2 newbies who brought the body here yesterday almost vomited their livers out. To be honest, this is the most ferocious corpse I've seen in all my years in this line of work. Huang Linjun turned to look at Zhang Wei and smiled. It can't be helped. After all, I am the only one in the department who can handle this kind of thing. I am here today to ask you some questions, some things that can't be found in the autopsy report, Huang Linjun said meaningfully. He knew that when a forensic doctor wrote an autopsy report, he would always find some unusual situation if it was related to an ability user. And these unusual situations were obviously unacceptable to most of the higher-ups of the police. You could not tell your superiors that the victim was killed by an ability user. At least, you could not write that in the report. Otherwise, you would be locked up in a remote police station for the rest of your life. Therefore, although aptitude users were an open secret among the upper echelons of many government departments, there were no written records of them in any of Great Xia's official documents. Therefore, when forensic doctors encountered cases related to ability users, they would often use the spring and autumn annals to subtract and subtract, giving a reasonable explanation or hypothesis. The truth of the case was usually only known to secret police like Huang Linjun, who was in charge of supernatural cases. I knew it, Zhang Wei muttered, but he still answered Huang Linjun's question. What's the cause of death? Huang Linjun casually flipped open the information of the deceased and asked. His arteries were bleeding profusely, and half of his brain was pulled out from his skull. Either way, he was dead meat. Zhang Wei's lips twitched. The things worth paying attention to are here and here. He pointed at the body's arms and neck. The size of this pair of arms clearly doesn't match the size of a normal human. It was almost 4 times the thickness of an ordinary person, and it was all muscle with almost no fat. I believe it if he said he could kill a bear with his bare hands. Maybe he's a fitness enthusiast, specifically training the muscles of the upper limbs? Huang Linjun asked uncertainly. Is there such a possibility? Have you ever seen a bodybuilder with muscles below his elbows? Popeye? Zhang Wei shook his head. Any kind of training involves the whole body. It's impossible to train only this part without involving the parts above the elbow. Especially his shoulders and back. They're pitifully thin, as if he's been malnourished for a long time. It's a stark contrast to his arms. Zhang Wei nodded and calmly thought. This wolf should be a mutated ability user, similar to the ability to control muscles. Then the traces of destruction at the scene can be explained. It's his strength that caused this. But the murderer was able to tear him apart head-on. And the neck, Zhang Wei said, pointing at the torn bronchial tube on the body. Was it bitten open? Huang Linjun asked. The murderer didn't receive any formal combat training, or is there a deep grudge between the murderer and the victim? That's what you want to investigate. I'm only talking about the body. Zhang Wei exhaled and said slowly, we didn't find a piece of meat. Huh? Huang Linjun didn't react for a moment. We didn't find a piece of meat bitten off from the neck. The entire hospital has been turned over, but we didn't find it at all. Zhang Wei's eyes grew deeper, as if revealing some kind of fear. Generally speaking, even if the murderer bites the victim and bites off a piece of meat, he will immediately spit out. Are you trying to say? Huang Linjun said in disbelief. I don't want to think that way, but guess what I found when I dissected his brain? Zhang Wei sneered. A normal adult's brain weighs 1,300 to 1,400 grams, but I only found 500 grams in the skull of the body. 800 grams of tofu pudding was missing. Either the victim was a retard when he was alive, or someone packed up the brain and took it away. Huang Linjun frowned deeply. You're saying that the murderer took part of the victim's brain? I suspect that he ate it. But as for what exactly happened, you'll have to find out. Zhang Wei said, I'm only responsible for telling you the truth. Xia was one of the 6 strongest countries in the world. Although there was still a huge gap between the rich and the poor, the problem of food for the common people had long been solved. Therefore, Huang Linjun found it hard to imagine that in today's modern society, where even homeless people could not starve to death, there would still be people who ate other people. Therefore, he asked, what about the other policemen? Brain death, Zhang Wei said. To be precise, the brain suddenly stopped functioning. Other than the contusions from a fall, there were no other external injuries. However, the brain suddenly stopped functioning, and then the breathing stopped. All the organs stopped working. I've never seen such a way of dying. Are there any signs of poisoning? Huang Linjun touched his chin and said, "Could it be some kind of disease? Did the victim have any similar medical history?" "No, there's nothing at all. If he hadn't stopped breathing, I would have thought that he was still alive." Zhang Wei shook his head. "He's much luckier than that pile of minced meat. He could still be buried with dignity." Huang Linjun felt that the case had become even more tricky. He thought to himself, is it the work of an ability user again? If so, it means that there are two ability users involved. Or should I say, a person with multiple abilities? How are they related to the missing Lianping? At that moment, Huang Linjun's phone suddenly rang. He picked up the call and rushed out without saying much. He gritted his teeth and said, "That be asterisk starred." Huang Wei, who was behind him, asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Huang Linjun did not answer. His mind was completely focused on the news brought by the phone call. Less than 16 hours after the murder in the hospital, another similar murder occurred. It was also suspected to be the work of an ability user. Chapter 7. In a dark alleyway, creepy creaking sounds kept ringing out. It was like a sewer rat chewing on its food. A black shadow was lying on top of old Nua's body, constantly digging for something and making a terrifying chewing sound. This place was already close to the outskirts of Zhongdu, an urban-rural junction. It was close to midnight, and no one noticed the horrible scene in this alley. Suddenly, the chewing sound stopped. An ray of moonlight shone on Lianping's pale face. His eyes protruded, full of horror. When he saw the bloody old Nua under him, he screamed and retreated, leaning against the wall. Lianping looked at his hands full of blood and the wreckage on the ground, and finally couldn't help but vomit. He vomited for a long time, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't vomit it all out. He always felt like something was churning in his stomach. When he saw the blood in his vomit, he screamed like crazy. "If you want to attract the police, then keep screaming." Lianping raised his head, angrily said, "What the hell did you do? You actually made me eat? Made me eat? You want to say eat people?" That voice said with bad intentions, "I didn't control you. From the beginning to the end, it was you who acted on your own. Killing the police, killing the first intruder, and chasing the second intruder, killing him, and then eating a few mouthfuls of his flesh, all of these were done by you. How is that possible?" Lianping hysterically slammed his head against the wall. "How can I eat people? You devil! How can you make me eat people?" "Ha ha ha ha! I said I didn't control you. I just gave you power." The voice sneered. "Everything you did after that was driven by your instincts under the influence of your power. Lianping, you were born a devil. In your more than 20 years of pursuit of justice, hidden in your heart is the deepest malice of mankind. For you, killing people is as natural as breathing. Destroying lives is as simple as wearing clothes or eating. These are your instincts. This is the real you." Lianping covered his ears with his hands. "Nonsense. I don't want to be bewitched by you. It's all because of you. You're the one who's manipulating me. You demon. You devil. You ruined my life." The voice harumphed coldly. "Before this, you already had no life. On the contrary, your body has been repaired, and you have grasp power that ordinary people can't grasp. You have the opportunity to take revenge. The only price he had to pay was to awaken his instincts. This was simply too worth it. Moreover, you promised me that you would pay any price. Are you going back on your word now?" Lianping was silent, a trace of viciousness appearing on his face. "But I didn't agree to eat people. What do I have to do to make you leave my body? I won't eat people anymore." The voice spoke again. "I only need to make a deal with you. In the process of a deal, you will obtain countless benefits and wield unimaginable power. Faced with a terrifying truth, some people would go crazy, some would collapse, and some would reveal their true nature. From the beginning, you've been using me, right?" Lianping's brain began to work again. "When we were in the ward, Although you said a lot, you didn't reveal any important information. I didn't even know what kind of existence you were. But at that time, I was completely disheartened, so I chose to believe you. The facts have proven that you made the right choice. Is that right? Now that I think about it calmly, I feel that I was bewitched by you and walked down the path that you wanted me to walk. The voice was silent. Lianping continued. If you want to make a deal, at least tell me what you are. And what's going on here? He pointed to the corpse on the ground and said, the deal is done. It's too late to say anything now. When you let go of your mind, my power and your body have already become inseparable. Speaking of which, shouldn't you take a look at your own body first? Hearing that, Lianping stood up and lowered his head to take a look at his own body. He let out a cry of surprise and looked at his own torso and limbs in disbelief. He cried out, "How is this possible?" His body, which was originally 8 meters tall, had grown even taller, almost to 9 meters. His thin and weak body, which had been tortured on the hospital bed, had become extremely strong. The muscles on his arms and thighs, in addition to his streamlined abdomen and chest muscles, made him look like a gymnast or a swimmer. Compared to his appearance from a day ago, it was a world of difference. At the same time, a voice filled with temptation rang out in his ears once again. My ability is to strengthen myself by consuming human souls and bodies. After I'm lodged in your body, you'll have the same ability. As long as you continue to hunt humans, you'll become stronger and stronger, and your body will be closer to perfection. As long as you hunt enough humans, one day, you'll become the god of the new world, using your own will to run this world. Don't even think about it. Lianping's tone was resolute. I'll never eat humans. Furthermore, what you're saying has no evidence. No evidence? Then how do you explain your current body? How do you explain what you did in the hospital? The voice mocked. You absorbed the soul of that policeman, which allowed you to fight against that metahuman who could control muscles. Then you ate that metahuman, which allowed you to chase after this man and complete the initial transformation of your body. The one who did that wasn't me. It was you. Lianping growled. Don't even think about using me, you monster. I won't be manipulated by you anymore. Then how are you going to take revenge? It's fine if you don't want to eat humans to strengthen yourself. But what are you going to do now? The police are looking for you, and the Shang family won't let you go. Although they aren't sure that you're the one who killed the people in the hospital, they know that you're missing. If they send a stronger metahuman next time, with your current strength, only death awaits you. That's none of your business. Lianping hugged his head and walked out of the alley. What a rookie. You don't even know how to hide the corpse after eating it. Lianping didn't say a word and walked out of the alley. Although his thoughts had returned to normal, his heart was still in a mess. He wanted to vent, but he didn't know what to do. He wanted to find someone to talk to, but he didn't know who to look for. He walked alone on the cold winter street. He was still wearing the hospital gown with bloodstains on it, which made him look extremely strange. The cold wind blew on his body, but Lianping didn't feel cold at all. His body was filled with an endless amount of power. Although he wasn't as strong as when he was in the hospital, his strengthened body had already far surpassed that of an ordinary person. Gradually, Lianping walked faster and faster. He started running, and the map of the entire city appeared in his mind, as if he was looking at the map in his hands. He had never felt that his memory was so strong. His arms swung powerfully, his feet stepped on the ground, and a huge force pushed his body forward. Feeling the wind blowing on his face, Lianping ran at the speed of an ordinary person's sprint, as if he wanted to vent all the depression in his heart. But his strong body didn't feel tired at all. His limbs didn't feel sore. His lungs were breathing normally, and there wasn't even a trace of wheezing. When he came to a stop, he just felt that his legs were slightly sore, like an ordinary person after a meal. It wasn't until dawn that he realized that he had unknowingly traversed dozens of kilometers and returned to the neighborhood where he used to live. Did I subconsciously come back here? Lianping murmured, seeing the familiar grass and trees nearby. He experienced a feeling of things being the same, but people have changed. The last time he came here, he was still a university student in his prime, a hero who acted bravely for justice. But now, he became a rapist that everyone despised, a murderer that the police wanted. What should I do? Walking on the street in a daze, Li Onping's face was full of confusion. Li Onping? At this moment, a female voice sounded from behind him, almost frightening him out of his wits. He looked back and found that it was his neighbor's daughter, Wang Shui. What should I do? Should I knock him out? Will he call the police? Should I kill her? Li Onping looked back at Wang Shui blankly, just when he was ashamed of his subconscious reaction. Wang Shui behind him spoke again. I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else. Wang Shui stuck out her tongue and winked at Li Onping. At the age of 18, she was in the prime of her youth. Plus, she grew up well and looked very cute. She was also sought after by many boys in school. At this time, Li Onping looked down at himself and reacted. It turned out that after his body was transformed, both his body shape and temperament changed greatly. Only his eyebrows still vaguely resembled his previous appearance, so Wang Shui mistook him for someone else. However, Wang Shui looked at Li Onping's current appearance and the bloodstains on his clothes and asked, Are you okay? No, I'm fine, Li Onping nervously said. I just fell down. Such a brainless lie. Wang Shui could naturally see through it. However, living in this slum, Wang Shui has seen all kinds of people. If she didn't feel that the other party was somewhat similar to Li Onping, she wouldn't have come up to ask. It's good that you're fine. There's nothing in this world that can't be overcome. Wang Shui said casually, If you want to find a job, you can go to the market and find my dad, Wang Qing, to help move vegetables and so on. It's better than idling around every day. Well, I'll think about it. Li Onping nodded, knowing that the other party misunderstood him as a beggar, a homeless person. However, he was now no different from a homeless person. In the past, he heard that Wang Shui's father, Wang Qing, was the boss of the market, and she liked to help some people in difficulty in the community, becoming a figure similar to a big sister. Now, it seems like this is the case. Watching Wang Shui leave, Li Onping suddenly felt warm in his heart. Perhaps this world is very dirty, but it hasn't reached the point of complete despair. Perhaps it's only a small part, but there are still good people in this world and good deeds. Chapter 8. In the elevator stood Li Onping's uncle and aunt, Jiangli. They were heading to the house left behind by Li Onping's grandmother. They looked slightly flustered. When they heard that Li Onping had gone missing early in the morning, Li Liping hurried to his mother's house with his wife. Jiangli was a little worried. They won't find us so soon, right? Besides, that kid's disappearance has nothing to do with us. Why are they looking for trouble with us? What do you know? Li Liping glared at Jiangli. Someone is looking for trouble with that kid. Now that he's missing and they can't find him, won't they come looking for us? That's why I hurried over and took everything I could, especially the dowry that my mother brought. There's several gold chains. We can't let others take advantage of them. After a while, the elevator rose. However, when the door opened, Li Liping was dumbfounded. The corridor was full of people. They were all muscular men in T-shirts. They held steel pipes, baseball bats, and other things in their hands. They were eyeing Li Liping like tigers eyeing their prey. At this time, it was too late to run. Two men immediately rushed up and dragged the couple out. When the passing passengers saw this, they didn't dare to say a word. They closed the elevator door and left. Li Liping and his wife were surrounded by a group of men. They were trembling in fear. He mustered up his courage and asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" From his current angle, he could see Li Onping's house. The door had already been pried open. Things were thrown on the ground. It seemed that it had been rummaged through long ago. Who are these two? The leading man was bald and wore a pair of sunglasses. He raised his chin and asked. The underling at the side looked at the book in his hand and answered, "It's that old thing's son and wife." The bald man glanced at Li Liping and said disdainfully, "Li Onping caused trouble. Do you know where he is?" Li Liping heard this and hurriedly explained the situation. He was afraid that the other party would make a move. "He has nothing to do with us. We even helped lawyer Sue find that little bastard." who knew that he was an ingrate and killed us. In the end, he even killed my mother. If I see him, I'll beat him to death. In his opinion, this was broad daylight after all, and Li Yonping indeed did not have any contact with him. Now that the other party understood the situation, he should not be too reckless. Unexpectedly, the bald man only sneered and reached out to grab Jiang Li. Li Yonping wanted a block, but was slapped to the ground by the other party. The bald man grabbed Jiang Li's hair, causing her to cry out loudly. Li Yonping sat on the ground with a pale face. His face was swollen as he looked at the bald man in fear. Baldy coldly snorted and pulled out a dagger from his waist, firmly pressing it against Jiang Li's face. The blade grazed Jiang Li's face, squeezing out a trace of blood. Jiang Li screamed in fright. Mother of Asterisker, are you trying to play dumb with me? Do you know who I am? As the bald man spoke, a few of Li Yonping's underlings immediately kicked him. Kneel! You don't even know Brother Chong? I scolded the one next door. Chong Zheng slashed with the dagger, immediately leaving a hideous scar on Jiang Li's face. Jiang Li cried crazily, but Chong Zheng kicked her in the calf, causing her to fall to the ground. What are you screaming for? Scream again, and I'll give you a few more slashes. Jiang Li immediately shut up in fright. Seeing this, Chong Zheng walked in front of Li Yonping and kicked him in the face. Li Yonping could only hold his head and kneel on the ground, letting the other party punch and kick him. Another kick landed on Li Yonping's back, where his kidney was, causing his body to convulse in pain. Mother of Asterisker, you still dare to come with such a coward? You made me wait for a whole night in vain. Li Yonping took a few more hits. Chong Zheng's punches and kicks were very heavy, and Li Yonping's body was not very good. After a series of punches and kicks, he was already somewhat unconscious. Chong Zheng was very angry. Yesterday, Brother Hua called him at 3 a.m. and told him about the hospital, asking him to quickly capture Li Yonping. He thought that since Fang Sheng was penniless, he should at least make a trip home. So he brought his underlings and squatted in front of Li Yonping's house. In the end, after squatting for a whole night, Li Yonping did not come home. Only Li Yonping came. Mother of Asterisker, where's Li Yonping? Are you going to tell me or not? I really don't know where he is. Stop hitting me. I really don't know. Li Yonping held his head on the ground and cried. Chong Zheng was furious. He flew up and kicked Li Yonping. Mother of Asterisker, still pretending? Suddenly, the phone rang. Chong Zheng picked it up, turned around, and said to Li Yonping, "Consider yourself lucky. Knock him out and take him away." Then, he held the dagger to Jiang Li's neck and fiercely threatened, "We're taking a man away. If you dare to call the police, you can just wait to collect his corpse. Also, if that Li Yonping contacts you, call us immediately. Do you understand?" After saying that, he asked one of his underlings to hand over the business card. Jiang Li hurriedly nodded. "I understand. I definitely won't call the police. If Li Yonping comes, I'll definitely contact you." Just then, 2 middle-aged security guards rushed out of the elevator. They pointed at Chong Zheng and shouted, "What are you doing? Put him down. We've already called the police." F***CKU. Without needing Chong Zheng to say anything, the underlings beside him immediately punched the 2 middle-aged security guards. These security guards were just 40 or 50 years old laid-off workers. How could they be a match for these underworld thugs? They were beaten down in 2 or 3 moves. The steel pipes and wooden sticks smashed into the 2 security guards' heads, immediately splattering blood all over the ground. Only when the 2 security guards fell to the ground on their last breaths did Chong Zheng let his underlings stop. He stepped on the hand of one of the security guards, listened to the other party's painful groan, and then nodded with satisfaction. He took the steel pipe from one of his underlings and smashed it on the iron door of the corridor. He pointed at the door and roared, "Don't think I don't know who called them here. If anyone dares to meddle in other people's business, they can just wait to buy a coffin." The neighbors behind the door were scared and trembled. "Leave 2 people here to wait for that kid. The rest of you follow me." After saying that, he arrogantly walked away with Li Yonping. Li Yonping was walking home. Although he didn't know what to do next, he had to find a way to avenge his grandmother. But before that, he had to go home, get some money, and change his clothes. But just as he walked downstairs, he heard a group of ants talking about it, as if something big had happened. When Lianping was puzzled, he suddenly found that he could hear what they were talking about from more than 10 meters away. Alas, old Li's family is really miserable. Lianping just committed a crime, and then his grandmother left. Now the eldest son came back, but he was caught by the underworld. Be careful, don't talk nonsense. They are Hua Qing's men. They can kill people without blinking. Look at Zhang Li's face. She was cut by a knife, but she didn't even dare to fart. Are they really so powerful? Humph. The one who came this time is called Chang Zheng. He is Hua Qing's man who specializes in collecting debts. He is ruthless and has a strong background. You see, they called the security guard in the building, but he was beaten half to death. I heard that one of his legs was crippled. Hearing this, Lianping was furious. He couldn't help but rush behind the chatting ants. Are you talking about Lianping who used to live on the 13th floor? Why didn't anyone call the police when he was taken away? They just let these underworld gangsters run rampant. He couldn't believe that there was such a rampant underworld gang in broad daylight. When the ants saw someone rush out, they were shocked. When they saw Lianping who looked like a beggar, they calmed down. Scare me to death. I thought someone heard it. The ants patted their chest and looked at Lianping. Little beggar, what do you know? Behind this Chang Zheng is Hua Qing. Hua Qing is the big brother of Zhongdu. Who dares not to give him face? Moreover, this Chang Zheng is under Hua Qing's command to collect debts for him. He is ruthless. How ruthless? Lianping frowned and asked. I heard that last month he went to the city center to collect debts. He killed someone, but nothing happened. This kind of scum, don't the police care? Lianping angrily said, Is that Hua Qing bigger than the government? They can't. The water here is deep. Lianping continued to ask, and found that he couldn't get anything out of them. After all, they were just a few little old ladies. Being able to know these rumors about Zhongdu's underworld gang is already considered profound. So he continued to walk upstairs to his home. However, knowing Lianping's experience in advance, he didn't take the elevator but took the stairs instead. This kind of old-fashioned public housing with an elevator generally didn't take the stairs. Because the floors were high and the stairs were narrow and slanted, it was very difficult to walk. Ordinary people would be out of breath after walking a few steps. However, Lianping was fine. His body was strengthened, so he climbed the stairs very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he reached the 13th floor. He didn't feel tired at all. He carefully peeked through the crack of the security door and saw two big men loitering in the corridor, chatting with each other. How long do we have to wait? What if this kid gets the news and doesn't come? Wouldn't we have waited in vain? One of them complained. The other man helplessly smiled. That can't be helped. I don't know who did it this time, but Brother Wolf and the others fell. Master Hua is furious and must take revenge. In the middle of the night, he called all the big brothers. Not only Brother Chong, but Brother Fei and Brother Bao are also on the move. Now the only clue is the missing Lianping kid. Master Hua has already named him. This kid first provoked young Master Shang. Now he provoked Master Hua. I think after he is caught, he won't be able to die even if he wants to. Chapter 9. You want to save your uncle? Then eat these two guys. They're not good people anyway. Moreover, eating them will increase your strength and increase the success rate of your next operation. Don't bother me. The tempting voice rang out in Lianping's mind, but he ignored it. Looking at the two tall criminals, Lianping gradually clenched his fists as he thought of all the things he had encountered. His gaze was filled with hatred. I'll start with you guys. Lianping pushed open the door and walked toward the two burly men. His appearance had changed so much that the two men did not recognize him. Kid, who are you? Do you know Lianping? Lianping did not reply. He walked up to the two of them silently and punched one of the burly men in the chest. With a bang, the burly man flew 2 meters away and crashed into the wall. His chest felt stuffy and he fainted. The other burly man only saw a shadow flash by, and his companion had already collapsed. Before he could react, Lianping punched him again. Their physical attributes were far inferior to Lianping's. Be it strength, speed, or reaction, They were completely suppressed by Li Onping. They were no match for him at all. Before they could react, Li Onping punched the burly man in the face, causing him to fall back with a cry. However, Li Onping grabbed him by the neck and pulled him back. Once again, Li Onping punched him in the head. After 2 consecutive punches, the burly man was already seeing stars. If not for the fact that Li Onping had something to ask him and held back, he would probably have fainted like the first burly man. "Where did you bring Li Onping? Who sent you?" The burly man heard Li Onping's question, but ignored it. Instead, he raised his leg and kneed Li Onping's lower body. However, Li Onping easily blocked it with his other hand. He held the burly man's calf in his hand and gradually exerted force until the burly man felt pain. "Let go of me. Kid, do you know who we are?" The burly man felt as if his calf had been bound by an iron hoop, and it was getting tighter and tighter. However, he still shouted, "Little bastard, kill me if you dare. Otherwise, I'll kill your whole family." "Oomph." Li Onping snorted coldly, but let go of his hand, allowing the big man to sit on the ground. Thinking that Li Onping had succumbed to his threat, the big man continued to curse loudly. "F***CK. Kid, where are you from? You dare to touch Brother Chang's people? I'm telling you, you're dead meat this time. Kneel down and apologize first." After Li Onping heard what he said, he stepped on the big man's calf. With a cracking sound, the big man's calf broke. "Ah!" The big man's scream turned into a muffled groan as Li Onping pinched his mouth. "Where did you take Li Onping? If you don't talk, it'll be your other leg." The big man was usually just a gangster who followed Changzheng. His arrogance and toughness just now was just a habit left over from following Changzheng for so long. How could he withstand this kind of torture? At this time, Li Onping glared at him, and he confessed everything. It turned out that Changzheng had a lair in the suburbs of Zhongdu. Usually, if he caught people who wanted to collect debts, they would be locked up there for interrogation. He himself lived there with more than 10 brothers. The person who sent Changzheng was called Huiqing, a big shot in Zhongdu's underworld. Changzheng, Huiqing. Li Onping chewed on these 2 names. From the conversation between the 2 big men and the subsequent questions, Huiqing was the big brother of Changzheng and the 2 people in the hospital. Shang Jinbang paid for it, and the money was in Huiqing's hands. Huiqing sent people to kill Li Onping's grandmother, and then sent Wolf and Lao Nuo to the hospital to kill Li Onping. If Li Onping wanted revenge, he had a few targets. First, it was the person who killed his grandmother, then Huiqing and Shang Jinbang. Then, it was Shang Angua and Wei Shishir who framed him. After asking a few more questions, Li Onping knocked the big man unconscious and walked home. He still needed to get some money and change his clothes. "Aren't you going to silence them? You're just going to leave them here, casually?" Li Onping said, "It's none of your business. I have my principles." "Hee, you just haven't experienced enough. Kindness is like a kind of poison. People who don't get rid of it will eventually die from it." The door had already been pried open by Changzheng and his men. The drawers and cabinets in the room had all been opened, and the clothes and daily necessities inside had been violently thrown to the ground. Li Onping was too lazy to tidy up. When he walked into the room, he found that the whole bed had been turned over. The few thousand yuan that was usually hidden under the bed had disappeared. Helpless, Li Onping could only take a few dozen yuan from the drawer, take a shower, and change into sportswear. However, with his deformed body, it was obviously a little tight for him. After thinking about it again, Li Onping walked into the kitchen, found a fruit knife, and stuffed it into his arms. Looking around the house, Li Onping smiled bitterly. Other than a fruit knife, there was nothing else that could be used as a weapon. Although he was very confident in his current body, Li Onping was still a little uncertain when he thought about facing more than 10 vicious criminals. But after thinking about it, there was no one who could help him. Are you afraid? Then what are you hesitating for? Eat the 2 people at the door. After increasing your strength, the so-called underworld will be nothing in front of you." Li Onping exhaled and said, "Then what's the difference between me and them? No, if I do that, I'll be worse than them." Childish sense of justice. The voice sounded disdainful. Why is it that after experiencing so many things, you still don't understand? This world has always been dark and ugly. Your so-called light and justice does not exist. Li Onping shook his head. No, I have changed. The current me will not ask for help from others. I will no longer ask for justice from those in power. I will use my own strength to pursue justice. You will die. Even so, I can't eat people. Li Onping shook his head firmly. After saying that, he ignored the voice in his mind and strode out the door. Recalling old Nua's bloody corpse, Li Onping could not help but tremble. I don't want to experience that feeling again. Since the strengthening of his body, Li Onping's memory and thinking ability have greatly improved. Now he has a map of the entire Zhongdu in his mind. When night fell, Li Onping rushed to the place the big man said. He found that it was an abandoned factory. He could hear the barking of wolf dogs from afar. The door was closed, and there were 2 vans parked outside. The 3-meter-high wall was covered with barbed wire and glass shards. Li Onping circled the factory from afar. He was not sure whether this was Changzheng's lair or not. At this time, a group of big men suddenly rushed out from the surroundings. They had machetes in their hands and surrounded Li Onping. The 2 men in the lead lifted their clothes, revealing the pistols at their waists. When he saw that there were only a few people, Li Onping wanted to resist. But the moment he saw the pistols, his nerves suddenly tensed up. The deterrent power of firearms was self-evident to people in modern society. In particular, Li Onping had no experience in dealing with firearms. One of the men walked up to Li Onping and patted Li Onping's face. You're the one who hit our people? You're looking for Brother Chang's location? I was careless. I didn't expect them to have guns. Surrounded by several guns in this position, I don't have the confidence to escape unscathed. Li Onping did not realize that he was still calmly thinking of countermeasures. He was not scared like ordinary people. He did not know whether this was the effect of the body's transformation or the so-called instinct that the voice mentioned. I'll let you silence them. Now that someone has tipped us off. The voice gloated. Li Onping ignored the voice in his mind. He just looked at the people around him coldly, without saying a word. However, ordinary people would be scared out of their wits if they were surrounded by a group of thugs. The man seemed to be sure that Li Onping was no longer a threat. He slapped Li Onping's head and laughed. I heard from Old Song that you're very good at fighting. You even broke one of his legs? Our boss wants to interrogate you personally. Let's go. Li Onping was pushed and shoved by a few big men to the factory. 2 men with guns walked behind him, staring at Li Onping's every move. He did not resist and followed them into the factory. It's too close. I have to wait for an opportunity. After entering the factory, he saw a few round tables in the open space behind the gate. More than 10 men were eating barbecue and drinking beer. When they saw Li Onping walk in, they stared at him maliciously. After Li Onping walked in, 2 dogs kept barking at Li Onping. Damn it, why are you barking? 2 of you, take the dogs away. The man behind him pushed Li Onping's shoulder. Let's go. Aren't you very good at fighting? There are more than 30 people here today. Let's see how many of them you can fight. As he spoke, one of the men searched Li Onping's body and took out the fruit knife that he had hidden in his pocket. Oh, you even have a knife? The men around pointed at Li Onping and laughed. They even poked Li Onping's body with the knife. Li Onping's face was serious, and he remained silent. No one thought that Li Onping would resist. They had seen too many situations like this. No matter how courageous a person was in the underworld, when surrounded by so many people with weapons, they would not have any superfluous thoughts of resistance. This was human nature. If they resisted, they would be killed. This was an instinct that had been left in the hearts of human beings after countless years of evolution. Therefore, along the way, several people patted the back of Li Onping's head and laughed unscrupulously. The man who had talked to Li Onping earlier had already run to the warehouse of the factory to report to Changzheng. Wait, there was also a man who had just finished eating barbecue and his mouth was full of oil. When he saw Li Onping walk past him, he grabbed Li Onping's clothes and wiped his mouth with it. Seeing that Li Onping did not respond, the people around laughed even more unscrupulously. As long as you grab the people around you and eat a few of their souls, you will be able to fight against them. You don't need to eat meat, just kill them. The voice full of temptation sounded in Li Onping's mind again. They're all scum. If you eat them, you will save countless people who will be harmed by them in the future. Li Onping did not reply. He frowned deeply. He did not expect that Chang Zhang's nest would be so dangerous. He also did not expect that his subordinates would be so arrogant and dare to use guns in broad daylight. The group of people walked into the warehouse and looked around. There were only some goods and shelves left in the warehouse, leaving a large, empty space. Chang Zhang sat in an armchair with a wine bottle in his hand and a row of subordinates standing next to him. After Li Onping came in, the men who had been waiting outside also came in and sat in a corner of the warehouse, leaving Li Onping standing in the middle with a murderous look. However, Li Onping did not even look at them. His gaze was attracted by another corner of the warehouse. It was a metal cage that looked like a tiger cage in a zoo. There was a bed in the cage, and a man covered in blood was tied to the bed. However, the most terrifying thing was that one of the man's legs was missing. Everything below the knee had been chopped off and was wrapped in dirty gauze. The man's eyes were wide open, and he looked at the ceiling with a numb expression, as if he had lost the will to live. That was Li Onping, Li Onping's elder brother in name. He always lies, and even wants to escape. I had no choice but to take one of his legs to make him behave. Chang Zhang pointed at the metal bed and said, "Do you know how many people have slept on this bed? What kind of hero would lie on this bed?" They would all give in within 3 days. Although Li Liping and Li Onping's relationship was not very close due to their age, he was still his elder brother. At this moment, Li Onping felt as if there was a ball of fire burning in his heart. He stared coldly at Chang Zhang, who was on the chair. "Does he have any enmity with you? How can you treat a complete stranger so cruelly?" As soon as he said this, someone came out from behind and kicked him in the thigh, wanting him to kneel down. However, Li Onping did not react to the kick at all. Instead, the man's body bounced, and he almost fell to the ground. Li Onping looked back at him. The man only felt that with so many people watching, it would be too shameful if he just let it go. After a slight pause, he wanted to pull out his sword. Not far away, Chang Zhang waved his hand and let him go. Then he sneered and said, "You have some guts. I am Chang Zhang. Tell me, why are you looking for me?" Chapter 10. What they did was evil, wasn't it? This kind of scum deserved to die 10,000 times. So eat them and let the evil power become the source of your justice. No, I shouldn't eat people. Boy, Brother Chang is asking you a question. One of his men slapped the back of Li Onping's head and pulled him back from his thoughts. Chang Zhang looked at Li Onping with more and more unfriendly eyes. "We are all here to see who is more ruthless. You are more ruthless than Old Song and can fight better than them, so you can break his leg. But you hit my men and dared to come to my territory. Now we are more ruthless than you. Do you think it's okay if you don't give us an explanation? If you don't speak, don't blame me for being rude." All the men present felt that this reason was reasonable and in line with the rules of the underworld. But in Li Onping's ears, he felt that it was abnormally harsh. "Do you know how to kill people?" Suddenly, Li Onping asked a question. "Did you kill the old lady who lived in his house?" His tone was terrifyingly calm. "Oh, I sent someone to do it. The person who did it is in this room. But what can you do?" Chang Zhang was silent for a moment. He squinted his eyes and said, "Why? Do you have something to do with him?" "But this matter is very complicated. It's not something you can imagine. And you don't follow the rules of the underworld and meddle in other people's business. It's very difficult for me. So your rules are that you can kill people and rob them. But if someone bullies you, you have to give them an explanation? You have harmed so many people. Have you ever given them an explanation? Don't tell me they deserved it." When Li Onping said this, the surrounding people were already cursing and rubbing their palms. "Cut off his hand and see if he can still be so shameless. Damn it, what are you talking about? Let's cripple him first. He'll know how to cry later." Chang Zhang looked at Li Onping with a cold smile on his face. Step by step, he walked towards Li Onping, feeling funny in his heart. What naive young man. He thinks he can fight, so he's meddling in other people's business. Chang Zhang defined him in his heart. He looked at Li Onping with amusement and said, he was now curious. How long would it take for the other party to admit defeat? 1 minute? 1 hour? Young man, you really don't understand things. You're even more arrogant than I was when I first started out. Kneel down and admit your mistake. Tell me your relationship with their family. I only need one of your hands, and you can still get out of here alive. Otherwise, Chang Zheng pulled out a dagger from his waist and pressed it against Li Onping's cheek. His tone was cold as he said, I'm going to peel off your skin. I'm going to peel it off bit by bit. Who knew that just as Chang Zheng finished speaking, Li Onping directly replied, the ones who should admit their mistake should be you. I'm only here to seek justice. You're good. Chang Zheng laughed at Li Onping's childishness. Do you know how long it has been since someone played me like this? You think you're ruthless enough, right? Damn it. Do you even understand the situation? There are so many of us here. If each of us spits at you, you'll be dead. The surrounding burly men had already begun to jeer. They took out steel pipes and machetes. Li Onping stood in the middle, like a little sheep surrounded by a pack of wolves. He lowered his head and said quietly, I've already died once. In the past, I didn't have the strength and relied on others to uphold justice. I asked for the conscience of those in power. But now, I finally have the strength to fight against you. How can I lower my head? However, Li Onping's voice was mixed in with the other people's voices. Other than Chang Zheng, no one could hear him clearly. He looked at Li Onping's face and only felt that the current situation was simply ridiculous. He had never seen anyone in this kind of situation, surrounded by dozens of people with knives and guns, who could still argue with him. Even the superheroes in comics couldn't be like this, right? Chang Zheng only felt that his authority had been seriously violated by Li Onping. The person he hated the most was others looking down on him. Withdrawing his dagger, Chang Zheng said angrily, Then resist for me to see, you bastard. After saying that, he slapped Li Onping's face. He had already given up on talking to Li Onping. It was completely impossible. This guy's brain must have been damaged from reading too many comics. He was simply an idiot. With a slap, the surroundings were silent. Everyone stared blankly at Li Onping as he retracted his hand. Opposite him, Chang Zheng's cheek was visibly red and swollen. He had been slapped by Li Onping. F***, kill him for me. Chang Zheng's face was livid. His entire face was distorted because of anger. Don't shoot. He waved his hand to the surrounding people. Tie him up. I want to cut off his flesh and feed it to the dogs. You can't die even if you want to. I want to torture you for 3 days and 3 nights. However, before he could finish his words, Li Onping punched him in the stomach. He was sent flying 2 meters away before falling to the ground. With a wah, he vomited out the food he had eaten earlier. He felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Li Onping's punch had seemingly broken his intestines. After knocking down Chang Zheng with 1 punch, Li Onping turned around and kicked the burly man behind him in the stomach. With just 1 kick, the burly man's won. 8-meter-tall figure was sent flying, smashing into a group of people. At the same time, Li Onping's other hand caught the steel pipe that was coming toward his shoulder. With a slight tug, he pulled the steel pipe out from the hands of one of the burly men. Before the burly man could react, the steel pipe smashed into his face and he fell to the ground, his head covered in blood. Another 4 men rushed forward. Machetes, steel pipes, various kinds of weapons were thrown toward Li Onping's body. However, their speed was too slow in Li Onping's eyes. They were like old men and women doing their morning exercises in the park. His brain even had time to think about which one to hit first. Therefore, he swept the steel pipe and 2 of them were sent flying. In the air, the parts of their bodies that were swept by the steel pipe were strangely distorted, like plastic toys that were casually torn by children. Taking a step forward, Li Onping avoided the attacks of the other 2 men behind him. He turned around, and the steel pipe was like a dragon swinging its tail, smashing into the face of one of the burly men. The huge force deformed the burly man's cheekbone, and several teeth flew out of his mouth and fell to the ground. At the same time, the remaining burly man didn't have time to react before the steel pipe smashed down on his head. He didn't even have time to scream before he fell to the ground, spitting out blood. At this moment, Li Onping didn't dare to hold back at all. facing the group of thugs around him. He knew that any mercy would be cruel to himself. After knocking down several people in succession, the surrounding people didn't even have time to react because Li Onping's movements were too fast. From the side, it was as if he waved his hand and people fell. Damn it, he still dares to fight back. Kill him. Beat him to death. One of the men walked to the corner, grabbed a fire bottle on the ground, and threw it directly at Li Onping. The fire bottle was almost the length of an ordinary person's arm. If an ordinary person was hit by it, his head would definitely be broken and bleeding. However, Li Onping actually took a step forward and caught the fire bottle with one hand. He stared at the man for a second. The man probably didn't expect someone to be able to catch it and was stunned for a second. In the next moment, Li Onping had already thrown the fire bottle back. The fire bottle almost turned into a red line and directly smashed into the man's face. The man's nose was completely caved in, and he fell without a sound. At this time, several people had already rushed to Li Onping's side, but they didn't even touch the corner of Li Onping's clothes before they fell to the ground with a series of hits. All of them were swept in the face by a steel rod. The most serious one almost had half a piece of flesh torn off his cheek. Li Onping didn't know how to fight. He just used the greatest strength and the fastest speed to smash the opponent's face. As for why he smashed the face, it was only because he felt that it was a vital point. Hiss, sucking in a breath of cold air. The few people behind them almost subconsciously slowed down when they saw this scene, but because of this, they bumped into the people behind them and squeezed into a group. Li Onping silently walked up, and with one hit each, he took down another 5 people. The abuse had already stopped. In fact, by now, everyone had realized that something was wrong. During this period, several machetes were thrown at Li Onping, but he continuously caught the hilt with one hand and then threw it back. The timing of each machete was almost the same, but they were all caught by Li Onping and then thrown back. Then he caught the next machete and threw it back. It was like an acrobatic performance. If there was an audience, it was estimated that the hall would be full of applause. But with such a person as an opponent, the big men only felt a chill in their hearts. At this time, a gunshot was heard. After Chang Zheng fired a shot at the ceiling, he raised his pistol and walked toward Li Onping while cursing. Mother asterisk cur, fight! Aren't you good fighting? As if he was afraid of Li Onping's skill. Chang Zheng stopped 2 meters away from the opponent and pointed the pistol at Li Onping's chest. Keep fighting. Let's see if you're faster than my gun. Mother asterisk cur. Chang Zheng frowned deeply. As he spoke, a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Obviously, Li Onping's punch was very uncomfortable. Throw away the steel pipe in your hand. He raised his chin and shouted to the big men next to him, take out your guns, someone go and tie him up. Don't block me, tie him up from behind. Obviously, Li Onping's back made him have a lingering fear and did not dare to give the opponent the slightest chance. Seeing that his hands were being held and were about to be tied up with hemp rope, Li Onping suddenly stomped on the ground and rushed toward Chang Zheng, as if he wanted to fight to the death. But just as he moved, Chang Zheng grinned and opened fire. A flower of blood bloomed on Li Onping's thigh. His legs gave way, and he was already half kneeling on the ground. The voice in his mind mocked, what a childish resistance. If you had kidnapped their boss from the beginning and not tried to subdue them, you wouldn't be in such a passive position now. Li Onping clenched his teeth. The flesh on his thigh was penetrated by a bullet. Fortunately, it was not an aorta, but the muscles were torn. Unless he jumped on one leg, he could not move. Seeing that Li Onping's thigh was shot, Chang Zheng sneered and walked up, smashing the butt of the gun directly on Li Onping's face. You're about to die, and you still want to bite me? What era is it now? You think your fist can be faster than my gun? Raising the pistol again, Chang Zheng threw the barrel at Li Onping's face. Blood splashed on his face, making his smile even more ferocious. You guys beat him up first. Chang Zheng laughed and said, later, I'll do it myself, and cut off his dick. Chapter 11. Lend me the power you had in the hospital. I've already used it up. Ha ha ha. If you still want it, eat them. Fists rained down. There were originally more than 30 men in the factory, but more than 10 of them were knocked down by Li Onping. A few people helped them out, and the remaining 10 or so men surrounded the injured Li Onping. At first, Li Onping could still rely on his great strength to defend or counterattack. But in just a few minutes, the gunshot wound had seriously weakened him. The first place to be hit was his thigh. A man stepped on Li Onping's wound before he could react, and the intense pain made Li Onping scream. Li Onping punched the man back, but was hit on the back by a stick and fell to the ground. He struggled to stand up, but the men around him were like little ghosts in the underworld. Countless hands grabbed him, wanting to drag him to hell. These people usually followed Changzheng, showing off their strength all day long. Almost everyone's hands were stained with blood, and they were called big brothers by the underlings outside. When had they ever suffered such a big loss? They were actually defeated by one person, which was simply humiliating. Now that they seized the opportunity, they naturally wouldn't let Li Onping go. But they had been fighting all year round, so they had a sense of propriety. Since Changzheng said that he wanted to torture him, they naturally wouldn't beat Li Onping to death. But even so, in just a few minutes, Li Onping's body had been badly mutilated. He was like a ragged rag doll that had been thrown to the ground. Didn't you want to seek justice from us? Outside the crowd, the villain's wild laughter stimulated Li Onping's nerves. Fuck you. Still not going to do it? As long as you absorb a few people's souls, it'll be enough for you to reverse the situation. The voice in his mind mocked Li Onping. Seeing that Li Onping was still unmoved, the voice couldn't help but roar. Trash. You trash. If you go on like this, you won't be able to avenge anyone. You can only be trampled under others' feet forever and become a trash that no one can protect. The grievance of being wronged, the pain of his loved ones being killed, Changzheng's wanton savagery, strong emotions erupted like a volcano. Li Onping felt as if there was a chill coming out of his body. It was as if something in his mind had woken up. He fiercely stretched out a hand and grabbed the ankle of a person who was about to kick him. Damn it, still not letting go. That person found that his ankle was grabbed by Li Onping. He lifted his other foot and stepped on Li Onping's arm. However, Li Onping still held on tightly, unwilling to let go of his hand. Let go, fuck you. A few people saw this and hurried over to help hit Li Onping's arm and shoulder. Some used their feet to kick, and some used steel pipes to hit him. The person whose ankle was grabbed suddenly shivered. Why is it getting colder and colder? Then he felt his ankle tighten, and a strong suction force surged up. Eat him. Eat him. Become one forever. Become the source of our power. Eat. Li Onping. That person fell down instantly, and the surrounding people were puzzled. Li Onping had already let go of his hand. What's wrong? Is he sick? Is he having a cramp? Ew. Look at him. What's wrong with him? A person pointed at Li Onping on the ground and said with a face full of fear. Li Onping was still lying on the ground like before, but the sports shirt on his body was constantly moving up and down, as if there was a giant python swimming in it. The sound of bones and tendons twisting sounded one after another, making people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Li Onping slowly stood up, and the wounds on his body were slowly closing and healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His muscles also expanded bit by bit, and he looked even taller, almost 2 meters tall. His eyes seemed to be painted with a layer of blood. You all have to die. Abruptly rushing into the crowd, Li Onping swung his fists left and right, hitting 2 people on the head, and they were already sent flying. In midair, their necks made cracking sounds, and their heads and necks were twisted together. Before they fell to the ground, they were already dead. After absorbing the souls of 2 people again, Li Onping only felt that his body was overflowing with energy, as if there was an endless amount of energy that was about to explode. With a wave of one hand, he swept away all the limbs and weapons that were attacking him. Use the gun. Quickly pull out the gun. Monster! Don't run, shoot together. Bang! Bang! Blood splashed out from Li Onping's body, and the huge impact penetrated his bones and muscles, causing his body to fall backward. After being hit by the gun again, Li Onping did not lose the ability to resist, and the energy he absorbed before continued to repair his body and gave him more power. Crawling on the ground, Li Onping quickly crawled toward the shadows in the warehouse, and a severe pain made his body completely instinctively move. As mentioned before, in addition to the large open space in the warehouse, there were many leftover containers and boxes. At this time, it was already night, and the goods were casually placed in the warehouse, forming a large shadow. "What's going on? Why did you shoot again?" Chang Zheng heard the gunshots and rushed over, and he was still holding 2 dogs in his hands and was anxiously growling at the shadows. Looking at the 3 people on the ground, Chang Zheng roared, "What are you doing? You have so many people, and you can't even deal with an injured trash?" Several big men stuttered to explain what just happened. Hearing them say something about being possessed by a ghost and that shooting was useless, Chang Zheng impatiently waved his hand. "He is in this warehouse. Why don't you hurry up and find him?" At this time, Li Onping suddenly rushed out, his 4 limbs on the ground, like a snake crawling on the ground, but his speed was amazing, and he left a series of afterimages and disappeared into the shadows. Chang Zheng stared blankly at the place where the afterimage disappeared, and turned his head, and the head of the little brother who was talking to him before was gone, and the hideous wound on his neck was like a devil's smile, and blood like a fountain spilled out and poured on his face. A series of screams sounded, although these big men have seen blood before, but they have never encountered such a cruel scene. The brother they usually meet every day in front of them had his head pulled out. "What are you screaming for?" Chang Zheng pulled out his gun and angrily said, "2 people in a group, back to back. Be careful, shoot when you see someone." "What the hell?" When the rest of the people heard Chang Zheng's words, as if they found their backbone, they immediately pulled out their guns and stood back to back. They carefully looked around the warehouse, but found that the place that they were familiar with for a long time, at this moment revealed a kind of horror. "Damn, come out if you have the guts." Chang Zheng glanced around and suddenly shouted, "Do you only know how to play dirty? Don't you want to teach us a lesson? Then come out and fight with me fair and square." After Chang Zheng finished speaking, the surroundings were still quiet, and only the sound of their heavy breathing could be heard. "Boss, this is too strange. Why don't we run?" One of the subordinates suddenly whispered. "Run my ass." Chang Zheng spat at him and suddenly pointed to the door. "Follow me to the door. There is only one exit here. We will block the door. I don't believe that he won't come out." The whole factory was now divided into 3 groups of people. Li Onping, Chang Zheng, and a dozen people stayed in the warehouse. More than a dozen people who were knocked down by Li Onping just now were helped out of the warehouse. There was also the man in the iron cage. Hearing Chang Zheng's order, the people immediately walked to the door. Their footsteps were very slow, back to back, and they raised their guns and aimed around, as if Li Onping would rush out from any corner in the next second. "What the hell is that? He is so fast. How do I know?" Chang Zheng's face was ugly, and he cursed, "I don't care what he is. When I catch him, he is dead." Before he finished speaking, a black shadow suddenly fell from above their heads, and in an instant, a big man was thrown to the ground. "Don't shoot! Save me! Save me!" The big man screamed and cried, and just as the others were hesitating, Chang Zheng had already raised his gun and shot. He obviously also seriously practiced shooting. Compared to the amateur movements of the people around him, his posture was much more professional. At the same time, he loosened his hands and let go of the 2 wolfhounds. But even though he shot quickly, Li Onping's movements were even faster. 2 shots left 2 bullet holes on the ground, and Li Onping had already dragged the big man into the shadows. The 2 wolfhounds roared and followed, and also rushed into the shadows. At this time, the big men finally reacted, and all of them fired at the place where Li Onping disappeared. Violent gunshots rang out continuously, and as if to vent the fear in their hearts, they kept shooting at the shadows. But their random shots couldn't hit Li Onping at all, and only the screams of the big man came from the shadows. "No, let me go. I beg you, let me go. My hand, my hand." A scream pierced the night sky, followed by the whimpering of the two wolfhounds, and everything returned to calm again. When Chang Zheng arrived with his men, there was only the big man's body on the ground, which was almost torn to pieces, and the two wolfhounds lying stiffly on the ground. No one could imagine what kind of cruel treatment the big man in the shadows had received, but this made it even more terrifying. The surrounding darkness was so creepy at this moment, as if it would open its mouth and swallow people at any time. Several of the big men couldn't help but vomit when they saw the body. "I can't take it anymore, I want to go out." One of them swallowed a mouthful of saliva and suddenly ignored the others and rushed toward the door, shouting, "Ah!" But just as he rushed out a few steps, a steel pipe flew across the sky and stabbed into the man's back, piercing through his chest. The shouting stopped abruptly, and the man slowly fell down, spitting out blood from his mouth. He turned his head and stared at the crowd, as if he wanted to say something, but it was stuck in his chest, and he couldn't speak. Finally, his head tilted, and he died. "Ah, ah, ah." One of the big men crazily raised his pistol and shot the surroundings. "I see you. Get out of here." Unfortunately, the only answer he got was a strange sound, and another steel pipe flew out, so fast that it became a black line. He only felt a poochy sound, as if something had pierced into his body. He turned his head and looked around, but he didn't find any injuries, and he suddenly laughed out loud. Halfway through laughing, he found that everyone, including Chang Zheng, was looking at him strangely, as if they had seen a ghost. From the eyes of the surrounding people, the whole steel pipe pierced through the big man's brain, and a few seconds later, he screamed and fell down. Like a signal, Li Onping seemed to have found a new toy. When the big man fell down, one steel pipe after another was thrown out by Li Onping, shooting at the crowd. The corpses fell down like dominoes, and life seemed so fragile at this moment. When the blood splattered, the big men couldn't care less. Even if Chang Zheng continued to threaten and shout, he couldn't stop them. Their faces were ferocious, and their eyes were red as they rushed out of the door. The situation was completely out of control, and Li Onping rushed out from the shadows again. He crawled on the ground like a snake, crawling towards the big men. His speed was very fast, and his body was constantly twisting, so the sporadic shots couldn't hit him at all. This time, he wasn't as bloody as before, and all the big men he caught up to were killed in one blow and fell to the ground. Their souls were all devoured. There were no screams, no blood. All of the remaining people had died without a sound or a sound. When Li Onping stopped, only Chang Zheng was left standing. He pointed the muzzle of his gun at Li Onping, and his hands couldn't help but tremble. "Kill me if you dare." Li Onping just looked at him coldly. "I wanted to say something to you." Chang Zheng roared at Li Onping. Ignoring his roar, Li Onping rushed towards Chang Zheng and twisted his neck before he could shoot. Looking around, Li Onping waved his hand, and Chang Zheng's body flew out, smashing a wooden box and finally sinking into a pile of debris. Later, I felt that there was nothing to say to a scumbag like you. I'd better go find Hua Qing myself. Then, Li Onping walked out of the warehouse and killed the rest of the thugs one by one. He also collected some cash in case of emergency. There was a gang fight in the abandoned factory on Dachong Road. Li Onping casually picked up a phone from the corpse. After calling the police, he only said one sentence and hung up the phone. He looked at his hands and said nothing. "You regret it? How is that possible?" Li Onping raised his head and walked out of the factory. "I thought that after killing these people, I would feel guilty, disgusted, and angry. But to be honest, when I broke their necks and smashed their skulls, I didn't feel anything at all. I felt like I had just killed a chicken." Seemingly shocked by Li Onping's attitude, after a long time, a sigh was heard. "Because you are a natural demon. What should I call you?" "You can call me Black." "Black? I should thank you." Li Onping stopped in front of the factory gate and said, "If it weren't for you, I would never have the power to do what I did today. I understand now. Since those scumbags don't care about principles and don't treat themselves as humans, I don't need to treat them as humans either." "You're wrong. I'm not a demon. I represent justice." "Oh, I've decided. I'll use the power you gave me to fight against evil. From now on, I'll only eat the souls of evil people. I'll become stronger and stronger, and I'll destroy all the villains. Li Onping clenched his fists, and his tone was full of determination. I'll punish the evil and reward the good. I'll become the hero of all mankind. After saying that, he punched the big iron gate. The whole iron gate was smashed open and fell to the ground. Chapter 12. Dihao Hotel, VIP room. There were only Su Lichuan and Huo Bro at the big round table. The table was filled with all kinds of delicacies and wine. As the most luxurious hotel in Zhongdu, this was always the place where the upper class gathered. All kinds of things that ordinary people couldn't even imagine were played here every day. The amount of money that ordinary rich people spent here in a day was enough to make ordinary people feel despair. As the saying goes, wine and meat go to waste at the door and frozen bones on the road. Hua Qing, the mayor is very dissatisfied with what you've done. Su Lichuan exhaled a mouthful of smoke and looked down at Huo Bro. It's fine if you're only doing small things, but now you even dare to meddle with the second young master's business? Do you want the mayor to owe you a favor? Who gave you the guts? Hua Qing, who was also Huo Bro, frowned and his eyes flashed with a dangerous light. But after hearing Su Lichuan's words, he didn't do anything. Because the person standing behind Su Lichuan was the mayor of Zhongdu, Shang Anghua. It was a power that he couldn't afford to provoke. So Hua Qing just smiled and said, "Ha, Mr. Su, it's a misunderstanding. How would I dare to meddle with the second young master's business?" Then Hua Qing toasted Su Lichuan and said, "I saw that Mayor Shang has a lot of things to do. How would he have the time to care about these small things? That's why I wanted to help the mayor. I'm confused." Su Lichuan snorted. "It's fine if you did it, but the people you sent were killed instead. Do you know that this puts us in a passive position?" Hua Qing patted his chest and said, "Mr. Su, I was careless this time. I've already sent people to investigate. I guarantee that Li Onping will be brought to you in 3 days." "Why would I want that trash?" Su Lichuan slammed the table and said, "Li Onping is just a pawn. He's useless. There must be someone behind this, trying to use Li Onping to attack Mayor Shang." "Mr. Su is right." Hua Qing nodded. "So, the key for us now is to catch those people hiding behind the scenes. We can't let those few criminals take revenge on Mayor Shang. It has affected the unity of the people and the stability of society." Su Lichuan used to be a civil servant, so he was very good at saying things. Then, he said indifferently, "But what you said just now is not wrong. You still have to investigate from Li Onping's line. You just said 3 days, good? I'll give you a week. If you can't find anything, then don't stay in the central capital." "Mr. Su, you can rest assured that within a week, no matter if he is a dragon or a tiger, if he dares to go against the mayor in the central capital, he will be dead." Hua Qing toasted Su Lichuan again. "Speaking of which, Mr. Su is really far-sighted. No wonder you can be Mayor Shang's right-hand man. You really hit the nail on the head. I heard that young Master Shang's case was also handled by you. You're really something." Su Lichuan smiled and said indifferently, "It's just some small tricks." Next, Hua Qing continued to flatter Su Lichuan. Su Lichuan, a veteran of the Jianghu, felt as if he was floating in the air. After 3 rounds of drinking, Hua Qing stuffed a thick red envelope into Su Lichuan's arms. Su Lichuan nodded with satisfaction and then calmly accepted Hua Qing's arrangement, calling 2 red card girls of the Imperial Group to have a threesome. After he followed the mayor, he resigned from his public office to facilitate his work. At this moment, he didn't have any scruples about enjoying himself. After Su Lichuan left, Hua Qing sat in his seat and lit a cigarette. He exhaled and then spoke to the empty hall. How was it? Behind him, a young man with dashing eyebrows and starry eyes slowly appeared in the originally empty place. This person seemed to have been standing there for a long time and only showed his figure after hearing Hua Qing's words. He pulled out a chair and sat on it. He then picked up the wine bottle on the table and drank it. This Su Lichuan is just a lowly person. Big brother, Why do you have to look at his face? The young man said with an unhappy expression. I'm not looking at his face. I'm looking at Shang Angwa's face. Hua Qing sneered. This Su Lichuan has been dealing with some illegal matters for Shang Angwa for many years. He can be said to be Shang Angwa's spokesperson in the underground world of Zhongdu. As long as we can establish a relationship with him, our position in Zhongdu can be said to be free of worries. Hua Qing didn't take the young man's displeasure to heart and continued. Even without Shang Angwa's intention, I will definitely investigate the matter of Wolf and Old Nua's deaths. Brother, this matter is related to ability users, so I'll have to rely on you to investigate. With your ability, it can be said that you'll get twice the result with half the effort. Are you sure the other party is also an ability user? Hua Fei asked curiously after hearing his brother's firm tone. Wolf's ability is good, but if the opponent has a few more guns, they may be able to kill him. As for Old Nua, although he has a lot of experience, he's just an ordinary person after all. It's normal for his physical strength to decline due to old age. You won't say that if you see their bodies, Hua Qing said as he took out 2 photos and put them in front of Hua Fei. Even with Hua Fei's many years of fighting experience, he couldn't help but frown when he saw the photos. These are Wolf's and Old Nua's bodies? It looks like they're strength-type ability users. It's hard to say. There are many kinds of abilities, so it's useless to just judge from the results. You'll have to investigate the specifics. Hua Fei suddenly said. The 2 of them went to kill Li Anping. In the end, both of them died, and Li Anping went missing. Do you think it's possible that Li Anping awakened an ability, killed the 2 of them, and escaped? How could that be possible? Don't think about it. Hua Qing laughed and said, Li Anping is just an ordinary person. He has no combat experience at all. Moreover, his body is already crippled. Even if he awakened an ability, how could he be a match for Old Nua and Old Nua, who have been through hundreds of battles? You're also an experienced expert. You should understand that the superiority in ability is never as reliable as a person's own strength. Unless that Li Anping got lucky and awakened some kind of heaven-defying superpower. Speaking up to this point, he shook his head in disbelief. At this moment, Hua Qing's cell phone rang. An anxious voice came from the other side. After listening to a few words, his face completely changed. Hua Fei asked, What's wrong? What happened? Chang Zheng is dead. Hua Qing slowly closed the phone. His face had become extremely gloomy. Someone called the police. After the police entered his factory, they found more than 30 bodies, including Chang Zheng. Except for one hostage, all of them are dead. Hua Qing squeezed the phone, making a creaking sound. He said in a cold voice, I just ordered him to investigate Li Anping's case. In the end, he was wiped out in one fell swoop at night. It's very likely that the person who saved Li Anping was the one who did it. Brother, you can start investigating from this clue. Okay, Hua Fei agreed. I haven't done any work for months. If I don't do something, I'll get rusty. Watching Hua Fei slowly disappear into the air, Hua Qing said fiercely, No matter who they are, they dared to kill my people in Zhongdu. Naturally, they will pay the price. But it's okay to kill the others. Bring Li Anping and the person in charge. We can use them to sell a favor to Shang Jinbong and his father. Li Anping was hiding in the opposite corner of the factory. When he saw the police car coming, he quietly left. Walking in the shadows, he felt the boiling power in his body slowly calm down. He spoke to Black in his mind. Black, tell me about your ability. After a moment of silence, Black chuckled softly and said, After being possessed by me, you can consume the souls of humans by coming into contact with them when you kill them. You can also consume their flesh directly to strengthen your body and spirit. Your muscle endurance, flexibility, agility, memory, reflexes, and so on will be strengthened. In other words, you can continue to become stronger by eating people. But from a hospital's point of view, your ability level is still very low. Ordinary people can be directly absorbed by contact, but for ability users, you have to kill them to eat. After hearing this, Li Anping didn't show any disgust like before. Instead, he calmly thought about Black's words. Must I be human? Can I eat animals? Haha. Black laughed wildly. Try making a tiger eat grass and a lion eat vegetables. The so-called humans are food that we must eat. Food, Lian Ping said lightly. So you're not human? Human, Black said disdainfully. My position in this world is far higher than yours. But this is not something you can know now. Lian Ping, don't think that you have broken through the cocoon just because you have an epiphany. Although your mind has been liberated, you still have a long way to go to turn your thoughts into real power. All right, but when I was in the hospital and the factory, what was that power that suddenly made me erupt? Lian Ping didn't delve into Black's words. Instead, he asked the question that interested him. I felt that in that state, I was much stronger than now. My body became bigger, and not just the body, but all aspects. It was as if there was a voice in my head telling me what I should do. Black answered, when I eat people, I can choose to use the energy to strengthen the body or store it. When the energy is stored, it can heal the body at a critical moment. It can also unleash its potential and strengthen your body. So, the more energy you store, the harder it is to kill you when you can unleash and heal. Just like in the factory just now, you ate a total of 34 people. I helped you store the souls of 10 people. Even if your head is cut off, you can still heal it with your hand. But as you become stronger and the quality of your body becomes higher, the energy required to heal your injuries will also increase. These few people are not enough to eat. It's a pity that you gave up so much fresh meat. Black's tone was full of regret. I won't eat human flesh. Lian Ping frowned. And I will only eat the souls of those who deserve it. So, when I absorb the souls, how do I choose to strengthen the body or store them? You know, they're already in your mind. Black said, compared to memories, it's just that you subconsciously chose to talk to me to obtain this part of memory. Lian Ping ignored him. He just focused his mind and thought. Sure enough, he understood how to use energy to strengthen himself and store it. There's one more thing that I'm very concerned about. On the street in the middle of the night, shadows slowly appeared in Lian Ping's mind. Grandma, Anna, Wei Shur, Shang Jinbong. The person who was sent to the hospital to kill me that day, is he also a person with ability? In this world, are there many people with ability? I advise you to temporarily give up the idea of revenge and accumulate your own strength first. The forces you're going against are very strong, not just ordinary people like Changzheng. If you want revenge, the police and even the army may become your enemy. Black saw through Lian Ping's thoughts at a glance and advised, and you are not the only one with ability in this world. According to my information, among you humans, there are many strong people with ability. I heard that they divided the ability users into 10 levels. I think you're not even at level 1. Black's words were beyond Lian Ping's expectation. He never thought that there was such a terrible truth hidden in this seemingly peaceful world. He could now kill more than 30 bloodthirsty men in the factory alone. And among the ability users, he was actually the existence at the bottom. But it doesn't matter. Looking at the shocked look on Lian Ping's face, Black smiled and said, as long as you make good use of my ability, keep eating people to strengthen yourself, and accept my training, it won't be long before you become the strongest person in this world. Training? Lian Ping suddenly stopped in the alley. Unknowingly, pairs of greedy eyes were already staring at his face. In the alley, four punks surrounded Lian Ping and looked at him maliciously. Hand over your wallet, bank card, and bank card password. Kid, I advise you not to take things too hard, or else it will be bad if you get a few holes in your body. One of the punks took out a butterfly knife and said, when he saw the knife, Lian Ping's eyes flashed with a cold light. Because after the knife was taken out, the meaning of the matter was completely different. At the same time, Black's laughter rang in his mind. Not bad. Now, is the first lesson, kill them. A few seconds later, screams and begging for mercy rang in the darkness. This night, Central City was destined to be different. Chapter 13. Ignoring the screams and begging of the four thugs, Lian Ping broke their right hands one by one and knocked them out. You're letting them go just like that? Black looked at the 4 people who had fainted on the ground and said with dissatisfaction, "Letting them go will only cause more deaths. Don't you want to fight crime? Killing to stop killing is the best way to do it. You're punishing them for crimes they haven't committed." Li Onping walked out of the alley and walked in a direction with fewer people. Along the way, he saw more than 10 police cars with flashing lights heading towards the factory. "They don't deserve to die, so I won't kill them," Li Onping said to Black, "but since they showed their knives, if they were ordinary people, they might see blood. So I broke on their hands." "Are you enforcing the law on behalf of the police?" Black laughed. "A murderer is doing the job of the police on behalf of the police." How ironic. Li Onping looked around and found that there were no more police cars, so he ran faster. With his current stamina, he could maintain the speed of an ordinary person for 10 minutes without a problem. As he ran, he answered Black's question, "Can I?" The law is the closest thing to rules. If everyone could abide by the law, then there wouldn't be so many tragedies in the world. Unfortunately, although the law is good, the people who enforce it are not all impartial. So I'm using my own strength to enforce the law. Enforce the law? Haha. Which police officer would break a robber's right hand? Black laughed. What you're doing is not enforcing the law, but your own justice. What's the difference? Li Onping had run a few blocks while they were talking, and his body began to heat up slightly. However, he did not feel tired at all. Instead, he became more energetic and ran faster and faster. He felt comfortable all over his body. The potential of this body, after absorbing the souls of more than 30 people, became stronger and stronger. Justice. You're just venting your childish emotions. Black did not continue to answer Li Onping's question. Instead, it changed the topic and said, "How is it? You can feel the physical enhancement in just one day. Isn't that great?" Li Onping suddenly accelerated and jumped up. It was as if he had broken free from gravity. His whole body flew up and floated toward the street lamp 10 meters away. Then he grabbed the pole with both hands and hung on the street lamp. Letting go of his hands, Li Onping jumped down from the 4-meter-high street lamp. He bent his legs slightly and shook them to dissolve the slowing force. He stood up as if nothing had happened. Indeed, it feels pretty good. Li Onping looked down at his hands and clenched them tightly. Of course, in just one day, your strength increased to 2. 0, your speed increased to 1. 9, and your stamina increased to 3. 0. If you unleash the energy stored in your body, your 3 main attributes will increase explosively for a short period of time. It has almost become an achievement that ordinary people can achieve in their lifetime. Of course, I feel good, Black said faintly. Strength 2. 0. Speed 1. 9. Where did you get these data from? Why does it sound like a game? Li Onping heard Black's evaluation and smiled. What game? These are the attributes that we use to evaluate the physical combat ability of living beings. Here, an ordinary person's strength, speed, and stamina are respectively 1. Black said calmly, "I have the ability to absorb souls and bodies. I'm a master of physical training. Now that I'm in your body, I can easily quantify your physical attributes by scanning it with my energy." "Oh, then can you quantify other people's attributes?" Li Onping listened to Black's words, and his eyes lit up. He was interested. "I can, but it's best to have physical contact. I can even observe the body structure and specific movement scenes. Only then can I make an accurate judgment." "Black, where did you come from? You keep saying that you're human. Are you not human before? Are you an alien or a demon?" Li Onping asked curiously. "You don't have the right to know that now," Black said disdainfully. "Since you don't want to eat people, then you need to rely on tireless training to have the power to take revenge. If your strength and speed exceed 10 or even 20, you can even destroy the entire Zhongdu, let alone taking revenge." Hearing Black's words, Li Onping stopped and said with a serious face, "Then, please tell me, how can I become stronger through training? So strong that I can take revenge." Zhongdu, eastern suburbs. Far away from the hustle and bustle of the city, the environment here was elegant and the scenery was pleasant. There were small bridges and flowing water everywhere, and the shade was like a cover. However, there were luxurious cars and villas everywhere, indicating that this was not a paradise for ordinary people. This was the wealthy district of Zhongdu. It had the best environment, the best layout, and the lowest crime rate in the city. The houses here were sold for more than 100,000 yuan per square meter. It was obvious that the people who lived here were either rich or noble. At the northernmost part of this wealthy district, there was a large manor. There was a building every 5 steps and a pavilion every 10 steps. The ancient palaces in movies were just like this. This large manor was called the Aquamarine Arc, and it was the wealthiest district of the wealthy. The people who could live there could no longer be measured by money. In a Bentley, Wei Shishir looked at the Aquamarine Arc outside the window and sighed in her heart. Since entering the manor, she had seen at least 3 groups of security guards checking on her. She had heard that the environment of the Aquamarine Arc was very good, and that the people inside were very rich. There was even a rumor that there was a wanted criminal living in the Aquamarine Arkansas. In the end, when the police wanted to come in to arrest him, they were stopped by the security guards outside the door. In the end, they had to call the head of security of the Aquamarine Arc to let them in. At that time, she thought that it was just the imagination of others. Now, she knew that the world of the rich was not something that ordinary people could imagine. What seemed like an insurmountable barrier to them was just a threshold that could be easily crossed in the eyes of those with power and influence. This is the life that I should live. This is my future. I have to climb up step by step. Thinking of this, Wei Shishir squeezed the thing in her arms tightly. Just as Wei Shishir was thinking, the car had already arrived in front of a small bungalow. A kind old man who looked like a housekeeper let her in. In the study, Shang Anghua pressed the remote control, and the screen on the table showed the surveillance footage of Wei Shishir getting out of the car. She was wearing a black silk skirt and high heels, looking sexy and elegant. Su Lichuan smiled and said, "Jinbang's taste is really good. This woman is beautiful and has a good figure. I heard that she is a top student at Tianjin University and is so sensible. Brother Shang, you are so lucky to have a good wife." Shang Anghua smiled faintly. "This kid is lucky." Su Lichuan smiled and said, "Huiqing is like this. I have already done as you said. Then I will leave first and not disturb you." After a while, Wei Shishir had already walked into the study and called out crisply, "Hello, uncle." Shang Anghua nodded and looked at Wei Shishir, feeling very satisfied. This woman's figure and appearance were first class and could be said to be very charming. What was more rare was that she was also a master's student in economics at Tianjin University and had received a scholarship every year. The only flaw was that her parents were ordinary people and had no background. However, with his second son's character, it was not easy for him to find such a wife. As for Wei Shishir's other information, Shang Anghua had already sent people to investigate her thoroughly. In addition, since the rape case, Wei Shishir had taken the initiative to show goodwill several times and was well-behaved in all aspects, which made him very satisfied. Jinbang is not young anymore. Maybe I can find a woman to tie him down and make him change his character, settle down, and do well. All kinds of thoughts ran through Shang Anghua's mind, but he was not dissatisfied at all. At the same time, he chatted with Wei Shishir like an uncle next door. He also knew that Wei Shishir's qualifications were so outstanding, and she even fancied his son. The biggest reason was naturally because of his power. However, at his position, he had already seen through the so-called love. He believed that Wei Shishir was very smart. With his power, as long as he did not lose power, Wei Shishir would definitely treat his son well. Shang Anghua said pleasantly, "By the way, where is Jinbang? Why isn't he here yet? Didn't we say that we would have dinner at home tonight?" Wei Shishir's face darkened and she stammered, "Jinbang went out to play last night. He hasn't come back yet. This brat, he's too outrageous." Shang Anghua picked up the phone and dialed Shang Jinbang, but no one answered. He was so angry that he slammed the table again. Wei Shishir comforted him, "Uncle, don't be angry. Jinbang might have something to do. Besides, you arrange bodyguards for him. He'll be fine. What else could have happened to that brat? He only knows how to eat, drink, and play all day long. Shannon was scolded and sighed at Wei Sure, it's been hard on you. How can it be hard when I am with the person I like? At this point, Wei Sure suddenly paused and blushed. Uncle, I went to the gynecology hospital yesterday for a checkup. This is the test report. They said that I am pregnant. Shang Anghua raised an eyebrow and took the test report and looked at it carefully. Wei Sure said shyly, I was feeling nauseous recently, so I went to the hospital for a checkup. I didn't expect that. I would be pregnant. Shang Anghua glanced at the test report and laughed. Good. You don't have to go abroad with Xinbang. Stay in Zhongdu and take care of your baby. By the way, are you going to graduate soon? The Amist Federation was on the other side of the sea. The entire country was dominated by white people. Like the Xia, it was one of the strongest countries in the world. The only countries on the entire planet that could be compared to them were Great Xia, Ice Castle, Codex Country, Tyrol, and Dongyang, and a few other countries that could be compared to them. Wei Sure replied, Yes, I finished my thesis defense last month, but I haven't found a job yet. You don't have to worry about work. I will arrange it for you. Give birth to the child first. Then, Shang Anghua took out a checkbook from the drawer and wrote a check for 500,000 yuan. If you need anything in the future, just give me a call. You are pregnant, so don't run around. Wei Sure nodded obediently and took the check from Shang Anghua. When she saw the amount on it, although she was touched, she acted more obediently and didn't lose her composure. She said crisply, Thank you, uncle. Shang Anghua's eyes showed a hint of appreciation. Chapter 14. Lianping did not know how much trouble he had caused for the police in Zhongdu. At the moment, he was walking through the streets of Zhongdu, jumping from building to building. His movements were light and agile, like a ghost in the night. In his mind, he continued to communicate with Black. The super-fast regeneration of your body is your greatest advantage. This advantage is not only reflected in your battles, but also in your training. With him as your backing, you can train without restraint and squeeze out your own potential. The speed at which your body becomes stronger will far surpass that of ordinary people. Lianping said, I understand. You can do whatever you want in the future. I won't die anyway, so just train me to death. As long as I can take revenge, it doesn't matter how many times I die. Black laughed and said, It's great that you're willing to cooperate. A serious illness needs strong medicine. You've been an ordinary person for more than 20 years. Now that you want to fight against countless strong people in the human world, it's impossible not to train at the limit of life and death. At this point, Li Anping suddenly said, But you've been training me to death so that I can kill more people to replenish my energy consumption, right? Hee. Black just laughed and did not answer. You've improved after half a day of training. Now your strength is 2. 1, your speed is 1. 9, and your stamina is 3. 1, the effect is still very obvious. You should run to the suburbs where there are fewer people. After all, it's better not to be seen in the future. Lianping did feel that he had become stronger. However, as his body became stronger and with a near-immortal regeneration ability, he had a deeper question. At this moment, he finally could not help but ask Black, How strong are the other aptitude users? Among the humans, with my current strength, is it still not enough to take revenge on Shang Xinbang? Black was a little uncertain. Your current strength, according to the classification of you humans, may not even reach level 1. But then he changed the topic and said, But with your current skills, killing an ordinary person like Shang Xinbang is more than enough. But last time you killed people in the hospital, and then Chang Zheng and his gang, you must have alerted the enemy. Since his father is the mayor of a city, he will naturally arrange for someone to protect him. This person is very likely to be an ability user. It is hard to say how strong he is, but you are still too inexperienced right now. The outcome of this battle is still unknown. As for Hu Qing, since he's a big shot in the military, he's definitely experienced a lot of fights. The person he sent to kill you is an ability user. Although there might not be a second ability user, he's still a threat. Some of the trained elite soldiers aren't weaker than ability users. It's not safe for you to go there now. Lianping nodded. He wasn't discouraged at all. He knew from the beginning that his revenge wasn't going to be easy. Thus, he continued to ask about black ability users. At this point, Li Onping suddenly slipped. He stepped on a collapsed eave and fell from the roof of a 5-story building. In midair, Li Onping's expression didn't change. He tried to adjust his body, but falling from a 5-story building was really fast. He could only try his best to maintain a head-over-head posture. Then, his legs went numb, and he stepped heavily on the ground. This wasn't the first time he encountered an accident in the middle of a run. For someone like him who hadn't received any training, running on tall buildings and streets like parkour, it would be a miracle if he didn't get injured. However, after getting injured so many times, not only Black, but even Li Onping himself was used to it. After adjusting for a few seconds and waiting for the injuries on his legs to heal, he started running again. Actually, I don't know much about you ability users. However, once you've built up the foundation of your body, we should look for opportunities for actual combat to increase our experience in fighting against ability users. Black thought for a while and continued. Ability users seem to be divided into 6 major categories. They're called ancient, domain, mutation, parasitic, bloodline, and extraterrestrial. Other than that, there are also some ability sequences and upper and lower rules. I'm afraid you'll have to collect information on your own in the future. Li Onping listened to Black's vague words. He knew that although Black was good at physical training, he knew very little about human ability users. He would have to rely on himself in the future. Moreover, Black's origin was a secret. It was really strange and unpredictable. So although Li Onping agreed with Black's opinion on the surface, he always kept a vigilant heart. He also used every minute and every second to familiarize himself with the power in his body. If I can completely master this power, I won't have to rely on Black. I can even expel him from my body and completely eliminate him. Thinking about that, Li Onping's lips curled up slightly. Not only because of the idea itself, but also because Black didn't react to his idea at all. It meant that Black didn't sense his idea just now. Li Onping, on the other hand, had learned how to think in his mind without communicating with Black. In other words, thinking in his mind and communicating with Black in his mind were 2 different things. In fact, ever since he left Chongzheng's factory, he had been probing in this aspect. Until now, he had completely mastered it. The ability to absorb souls not only strengthened Li Onping's physical attributes, but also his brain. It was an evolution of the whole body. On the other side, Black didn't know that Li Onping's mind was turning so many corners. He continued to say, human society is a society of groups. Ability users can't get rid of this fact, especially when you have to deal with a mayor. It's like you have to deal with an entire force. They won't only have one ability user. They will also have the cooperation of various talents. Modern military forces are also very powerful. It's not something that ordinary ability users can fight against. So you must endure it. You can fight on a small scale. But if you want to deal with them openly, you must wait until you have fully grasped your own strength. Otherwise, even if you have an immortal body now, there are still many ways to deal with them. For example, fire, acid, electric attacks. 5 days later, in a forest on the outskirts of Zhongdu, a black shadow was moving at high speed. It was Li Onping. Due to the development of industry and technology, Dixia's natural environment had been well protected. Take Zhongdu, for example. After leaving the edge of the city, one would often see large areas of undeveloped forest. In the dense forest, no one trimmed it all year round. It was almost impossible to move forward. The needles scraping Li Onping's body was as painful as knives. In such an environment, Li Onping was still running at full speed. He was so fast that he was like a black shadow running in a straight line. Thus, the needles scraping his body became even more painful, leaving behind wounds. Especially when he was running at high speed, Li Onping had lost count of how many times he was stabbed by needles and branches. However, he just casually pulled them out without stopping. The energy stored in his body was constantly used to heal the wounds on his body. Not only that, the dense forest was overgrown with grass and trees, and there was no path at all. especially the ground that had been piled up for decades. There was always the danger of falling down. As long as Li Onping was not careful, with his current speed, if he hit a tree trunk, his bones would be broken, his internal organs would be ruptured, and he would bleed profusely. He could only constantly maintain his balance and try his best to avoid the branches, trunks, needles, stones, and other dangerous obstacles. Li Onping did not know how many times he was hit. His hands and feet were broken, his eyes and blood vessels were pierced, and there was even one time when he missed a step and hit his head on a stone. His whole skull was broken, and even his brain was about to come out. The clothes on his upper body had long since rotted away. At this moment, he took off the clothes on his upper body, exposing his strong abdomen and chest. In just a few days after gaining his ability, Li Onping's body now looked like a new person. His whole body was streamlined with muscles, like a marble cast on a skeleton. In the dense forest, Li Onping's speed was getting faster and faster. As time passed, it was as if every part of his body had grown eyes, and all the obstacles were dodged by him smoothly. His injuries were getting lesser and lesser, and his running speed was getting faster and faster. Suddenly, Li Onping let out a long howl, and suddenly there was an empty space in front of him. He had already rushed out of the dense forest, and a plane appeared in front of him. Not bad. To be able to train to this extent after running for 10 hours, Li Onping's aptitude is better than I thought. Thinking of this, Black still had a critical tone. It took you 10 hours to get used to the dense forest environment. Your balance, endurance, reaction, and speed are all too weak. And along the way, you've also wasted souls to heal your injuries. Now, you're only left with the soul energy of 3 people. If you don't eat more people, you won't be able to do it. Li Onping put his hands on his knees, panting loudly, and said intermittently, "For training of this level, I'll have to absorb souls every day." He felt his heart thumping, and there was a burst of pain as if it would jump out at any time. Even with his current physical strength, such high-intensity training was constantly challenging the limits of his physical strength. However, in an instant, a stream of energy flowed through his heart, and his heart was no longer in pain. It was not just his heart. It was the same for the other parts of his body. They were no longer in pain, and had instead become stronger. This was the power of Li Onping's ultra-rapid regeneration ability. Any slight injury could be repaired quickly. Even if an ordinary person went through such a terrifying training and persevered, their body would probably be crippled, and there would be hidden injuries in the heart and other important organs. However, Li Onping did not have such a burden at all. He could train however he wanted, and as brutal as he wanted. He did not have to consider his health and safety at all. He could always improve at the fastest speed, and he did not even need to rest or eat. As of now, Li Onping had been training for 21 hours without sleep or rest. Didn't you want to punish evil and promote good? What's the big deal about absorbing the souls of a few evil people every day? Black smiled and said, "Let's call it a day. Go find something to eat and rest for a while. After that, you can catch a few bad guys and eat them." Although soul energy could also be used to replenish physical strength and replace food, Li Onping obviously would not be so extravagant for every meal. Li Onping asked, "What's my physical fitness now?" He looked at the tattered sports shoes under his feet and simply threw them away. He ran barefoot on the ground. It seemed that he would not be able to wear clothes and shoes in the future training. Strength 2. 1. Agility 2. 0. Stamina 3. 2. However, there's basically no energy left in your body that hasn't been absorbed yet. If you want to maintain this training effect, you'll have to eat every day. After saying that, Black smiled and looked at Li Onping's reaction. Li Onping was not as resistant as before. He just frowned and said, "It takes a lot of time to train every day. How can I find so many evil people? Just catch a few random people and eat them." After saying that, Black saw that Li Onping was about to get angry. He smiled and said, "Central City is so big. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find the bad guys? You can go to some areas with more gangsters to get information and figure out their distribution. Also, isn't that Huiqing a big shot in the mafia? You can find his men to eat. Liaoping nodded and felt that Black's words were very reasonable. However, on second thought, there seemed to be an illusion. Wasn't that just treating those people as prey? It was like a lion hunting in its territory and choosing its target. No, I'm doing it for justice, to destroy the evil forces. He shook his head and got rid of the illusion of being hunted. Liaoping strode back home. Chapter 15. A few days later, in a bungalow somewhere in the suburbs, Li Onping let go of the man's neck and let him fall to the ground. The man's limbs were twisted in an unnatural way, and the veins on his face were bulging. It was obvious that he had suffered inhumane torture. The whole room was covered in blood. Other than the man, there was another man and woman. They were torn into pieces and thrown on the ground. This was a child trafficking den. After Li Onping got the news from a gangster, he rushed over in the middle of the night. When he opened the door, he saw a middle-aged man going in and out of the body of a girl who was not even 10 years old. The girl cried and struggled, but the other man used a sock to gag her mouth. Li Onping killed the 3 kidnappers in the most bloody way possible. Only now did the blood calm him down. There were 5 other children locked up next to the room. Including the girl that he knocked out, there were 6 in total. According to the original plan, they would be taken away the next day. They would either become child brides in some remote mountain or be adopted by some farmer, or their organs would be taken away and sold to the rich. Although the blood calmed him down, the bloodlust in his heart was like a black hole that could never be filled. What's my current physical fitness? Black laughed. Strength 2. 3. Speed 2. 2. Stamina unchanged at 3. 4. As your body gets stronger, your progress will slow down. After spending so many days training and killing people, the effect is not as good as the first few days of using your ability. However, the energy used for healing is enough for you to revive 15 times or unleash 15 times. During this time, Li Onping had been wandering around the city while he was training. He appeared in the shadows and killed people everywhere. He also saw all kinds of criminals. Theft, rape, murder, corruption, robbery. After he voluntarily sank into the darkness, he saw more crimes than he had seen in the past 20 years. It's okay. In this world, there is no lack of scum, Li Onping said bitterly. Then he picked up the phone on the ground and called the police. Turning his head to look at the girl who had fainted on the bed, Li Onping frowned again. The police will be here soon. They will probably send her and the children next door back to their parents. Thinking of this, Li Onping did not stay any longer. He opened the door and walked out, exerting strength in his legs. He leaped into the air and leaped toward the wall. In the dark night, he was like an elegant night elf, jumping between rooftops and buildings. His movements were as smooth as if they had been rehearsed countless times. If you continue like this, your progress will be too slow. Black could not help but grumble. What's the difference between a good person and a bad person? They're all just food to you. You're like a picky eater now, slowing down your growth. Let go of your principles. This was not the first time Black had tried to persuade Li Onping. You can only become stronger if you release your desires. The morality you cling to is just an obstacle that holds you back. And these days, you've seen it yourself. The sins of humans are everywhere. You can't control them all. No, it should be said that the so-called good and evil of humans is just a set of social labels that most people recognize. It's a set of rules that are beneficial to most people. As for your justice, it's just an act of satisfying your personal pursuit. At most, it's just a dream. It's because there are loopholes in the rules of society that my strength is needed. Do you want me to watch those criminals do whatever they want? Those few children just now, if I don't save them, their lives will be ruined. On the yacht yesterday, a group of girls were cheated from abroad. If I don't save them, they will sink into depravity for the rest of their lives, living a life worse than death. Li Onping stopped on the roof of a building. Looking at the bright lights of Zhongdu under his feet, he lightly said, "Only absorbing the souls of the wicked, That's my bottom line. Killing without principles will only bring destruction. Ignoring Black's incessant chatter, Li Onping stomped on the ground and disappeared from the rooftop. He was more and more fond of leaping from building to building, which made him feel like a superhero in a comic book. 18 hours later, Li Onping finished his cultivation. He returned home, took a shower, changed his clothes, and came out for dinner. Li Onping was now training every day, looking for the bad guys to eat and inquiring about Huiqing and Shang Zhenbang. Then, he would eat and rest, repeating the cycle. Li Onping casually walked into a barbecue buffet and paid the bill. He ordered a pile of mutton and beef and began to gorge himself. He had just completed more than 18 hours of continuous cultivation. His physical strength was greatly consumed, and now he needed to replenish it. Such a barbecue buffet was just right for him to eat. Beef and mutton contained a lot of protein. In the blink of an eye, Li Onping wolfed down more than 15 pounds of beef and mutton. Yet, he showed no signs of stopping. This made the waiters around him secretly speechless. Even the lady boss, who was watching TV at the cashier, looked at him several times. Li Onping did not care so much. He felt that his stomach was like a bottomless pit. A big pot of beef was digested in an instant. The protein was absorbed by his stomach and constantly replenished to the place where he exercised today. The muscles became stronger and stronger. Black said, after your body has been modified, your digestive ability has been greatly enhanced. Every time you exercise, you need to absorb a lot of nutrients. Ordinary meat products are too simple in terms of nutrition, and eating them is a waste of time. Do you have any higher grade food? Hearing Black's words, Li Onping thought of a series of food in his mind, but they all cost money. Thinking of this, Li Onping ordered another 10 skewers of chicken drumsticks. Chicken was recognized as the best source of protein. This action caused the lady boss's eyes to twitch again. The lady boss absent-mindedly clicked on the remote control and changed the channel of the TV. The top 10 outstanding youths of Zhongdu City will be awarded at Zhongdu TV on the 30th of this month. The recipient of the award will be the young entrepreneur Shang Zhenbang, who bravely fought the gangsters. The lady boss looked at him and said, "He's really a rich man. He's rich, handsome, and has a sense of justice. If I were 20 years younger, I would chase after him." Before she finished speaking, Li Onping suddenly slammed the table and stood up. Seeing everyone looking at him, Li Onping's face darkened. He snorted and walked straight away. Only the lady boss was left there muttering, "Poor man, and he hates the rich." Li Onping walked out of the barbecue restaurant and walked alone on the street. His heart was boiling like boiling water. Don't come to this restaurant in the future. Go to another one. Be careful not to attract unnecessary attention. Black reminded, now you don't have to think about revenge. You have to be patient. When you become strong enough, you can kill as many people like Shang Zhenbang as you want. Don't delay yourself for a moment of pleasure. I know. Li Onping clenched his fists and said hatefully, I'm just a little unwilling. He was the one who did the evil, but the public perception was reversed by a casual report in the newspaper. When he heard the lady boss's words, Li Onping almost wanted to punch her to death. But she was not a bad person. She was just deceived. This kind of situation where he could kill her at will, but he should not do it even if he wanted to. It made him very depressed. At this moment, a gangster with colorful hair like a coxcomb bumped into Li Onping's shoulder and was directly knocked to the ground. F***CK, don't you have eyes? The gangster instantly got up and pointed his finger at Li Onping's chest and scolded. A few of the same colorful, ragged, non-mainstream people next to him immediately surrounded him and pointed at Li Onping and shouted, Do you want to die? How dare you mess with our rainbow gang? Apologize, F***CK. The clothes are torn. A trace of anger flashed in Li Onping's eyes and said coldly, I'm sorry, can I go now? Originally, Li Onping was tall and had some deterrence in the eyes of these non-mainstream people. But at this moment, seeing him admit defeat and apologize, these non-mainstream people instantly became arrogant. Compensate, F***CK. I bought this clothes for 5,000 yuan. Do you think it's enough just to say sorry? That's right. If you don't compensate, don't think about leaving today. When the pedestrians on the roadside saw Li Onping surrounded by several gangsters, they all scattered in an instant. A few of them began to watch from afar. Li Onping sneered in his heart. He did not know whether he was laughing at the indifference of the world or the ignorance of these people in front of him. He nodded submissively and whispered to these young people, "I don't have so much money. Why don't you come with me to get it?" Several non-mainstream people were shocked. It seemed that they did not expect the man in front of them to be so cowardly that he really planned to pay 5,000 yuan. They immediately followed Li Onping to get the money. "You should have known you were wrong. Forget it, I'll spare you this time. Go and get the money." After walking for a few minutes, the people following Li Onping felt that something was wrong. They found that Li Onping kept picking some alleys to go, and the more he walked, the more remote they became. Looking at each other, the gangster who was bumped by Li Onping just now shouted, "Hey, where are you going? I'm telling you, don't think about running away." After saying that, he grabbed Li Onping's shoulder in front of him. Seeing that there was no one around, Li Onping turned his head and coldly glanced at them. He gently waved his hand, and a few slaps were heard. The few non-mainstream people were slapped to the ground and could not get up. Li Onping picked up Mohawk, who was knocked to the ground by him, and pressed him against the wall. Where Hu Qing's men gathered, that gangster was still a student. He had only watched a lot of TV and movies and learned to mix in the underworld. How could he withstand Li Onping's interrogation? He only felt that his neck was being tightly gripped by the other party. It was getting tighter and tighter, as if he was about to suffocate. When he heard Li Onping's question, he immediately replied with a hoarse voice, "Volcano, Volcano Bar. All the gangsters in the city often drink there." Chapter 16. At the entrance of the hotel, Shang Jinbong walked into the parking lot with a cigarette in his mouth. The images of the young models on the bed were still in his mind. Behind him, a black man in a black suit was following closely behind. Shang Jinbong talked and laughed with him. After a few steps, they got into his Pagani Zona Sport car. The supercar had a maximum output of 800 horsepower. The whole car was made of carbon fiber and could accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.2 seconds. The price was 20 million, and there were no more than 10 of them in the world. The license plate number was the arrogant Zhong A00000. It was a gift from Shang Jinbong when he was 20 years old. The traffic police in Zhongdu pretended not to see the supercar, no matter if it was speeding or running a red light. The black man sat in the passenger seat. Shang Jinbong turned on the engine and stepped on the gas. The car rushed out and disappeared on the road in the blink of an eye. Along the way, Shang Jinbong drove very fast. The Zonda was indeed a supercar series. It was so fast that people couldn't even see the taillights. Looking at the speed of more than 200 kilometers per hour on the dashboard, the black man couldn't sit still. He persuaded Shang Jinbong, "Shang, we're not in a hurry. You don't have to go so fast." He was sent to protect Shang Jinbong and didn't want to die in a car accident. Shang Jinbong only thought that the black man was worried about being stopped by the traffic police. He said proudly, "Ha, Jay, this is Zhongdu de Xia. I could drive as fast as I want. Just watch." After that, he sped up again and reached 250 kilometers per hour. However, there were many cars in Zhongdu. After a while, Shang Jinbong had to slow down and move slowly with the traffic. When Jay saw this, he wiped the sweat off his forehead and felt relieved. At that moment, a motorcycle with flashing police lights caught up and stopped in front of Shang Jinbong's car. Shang Jinbong had to stop. The traffic police's name was Ruan Hong. It was his first day on the job, so he didn't recognize Shang Jinbong's car. When he saw someone driving at 250 kilometers per hour, he immediately caught up. "Please show me your driver's license." Shang Jinbong had just said that he was fine in front of Jay, but in the blink of an eye, he was stopped by the traffic police. He only felt that his face had been completely lost. He spat a mouthful of thick phlegm on Ruan Hong's police uniform and cursed, King retard. "Don't you know who I am?" Ruan Hong was infuriated when his clothes were spat on. However, as a traffic policeman, He could not retaliate or the matter would blow up. All he could do was hold back his anger and say, "The speed limit is 80. You drove at 250. Do you know how much you exceeded the speed limit? I'm going to confiscate your driver's license." "Deduct your mother." Shang Jinbang got out of the car and slapped Ruan Hong's face, but he dodged it. "Stop it, or I'll sue you for assaulting a police officer." As he spoke, Shang Jinbang threw a few more punches at Ruan Hong. However, his body had been hollowed out by alcohol and women all year round. How could he be a match for a young man like Ruan Hong, who had graduated from the police academy? He barely brushed past him. The more Shang Jinbang fought, the angrier he became. He suddenly turned his head and said to Black Jay in the car, "Get him." When Ruan Hong heard that, he looked at Black Jay in the car and saw him shrug his shoulders. He suddenly laughed, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Following that, Ruan Hong suddenly felt his chest tighten as his head began to feel dizzy. "You? What did you do?" When Shang Jinbang saw Ruan Hong holding his head and swaying, he laughed loudly and rushed forward. With one kick, he knocked Ruan Hong to the ground. Following that, he punched and kicked Ruan Hong, who was on the ground, ignoring his identity as a police officer. F***CK. You want to confiscate my driver's license? Police? I've liked to hit police officers since I was young. If you make me feel bad, I'll hit you even if the King of Heaven comes. After kicking Ruan Hong a few more times, Shang Jinbang saw him lying on the ground with his head covered in blood. He exhaled in satisfaction and left with Black Jay in the car. He still had to rush to a cocktail party and could not be bothered to tangle with such a small police officer. In the end, he ended up getting drunk that night. He only woke up at noon the next day at a 5-star luxury hotel. Turning his head to look at the two women who were still sleeping soundly on the bed, Shang Jinbang could not help but touch their breasts, eliciting moans from them. "What kind of freshman are you? Pretending to be pure in front of me? With tens of thousands of you on, you'll still climb into my bed like a bitch." Thinking of this, Shang Jinbang laughed proudly. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, Shang Jinbang picked up his phone and saw more than 10 missed calls. He called Wei Shishir first. Shang Jinbang liked this woman very much. Moreover, she was pregnant and he did not want to make his wife angry. He said that he had worked overtime yesterday and was very busy. Following that, there were a few missed calls from his father and the uncles at the police station. He called them one by one and found out that the incident on the road yesterday had blown up. First, the police officer he had beaten up was sent to the hospital and became a vegetable. The family insisted that the driver responsible for the accident take responsibility, but his colleagues at the traffic police brigade persuaded him to leave. Also, when he had beaten up the traffic police officer on the road yesterday, a white-collar couple had taken a picture of it with their mobile phones and uploaded it to the internet. Luckily, his father had people in the city's publicity department, and they immediately suppressed the matter. The related posts and comments on the internet were deleted overnight. Shang Jinbang was very depressed. Previously, there was Li Anping, and now there were a few bastards. Why did anyone dare to provoke him? They were really courting death. Hence, he called Su Lichuan. "Uncle Su, I was bullied by someone. What do you think I should do?" Hearing this, Su Lichuan immediately shouted, "Who is so daring? Tell me, Uncle will stand up for you." "It's because I drove faster on the road yesterday. A traffic police officer was not tactful and stopped me. In the end, he was beaten up by me. Now, he's sick the next day and wants to blame it on me. Also, a white-collar couple took a picture of me beating him up and want to upload it to the internet." "Understood. I'll do it right away. Also, Uncle Su, don't let my father know that I looked for you." "Understood." Following this, Su Lichuan immediately called the head of the traffic police team. "Your traffic police team is too disrespectful. Why did you make young Master Shang look so bad?" The head of the traffic police team immediately apologized profusely and said that he wanted to invite young Master Shang out for a meal and drink with him. After calling the traffic police team, Su Lichuan thought for a while and remembered that Hu Qing wanted to express his loyalty a few days ago. Hence, he called Hu Qing again. An hour later, Ruan Hong was fired as a punishment for participating in a brawl. He had to pay for all his living expenses and medical expenses. The police team would not be responsible for it. Hearing this news, Ruan Hong's mother, an old woman in her 60s, fainted on the spot. On the same afternoon, a group of burly men in black shirts and black pants barged into a small district. They smashed the car of a white-collar couple and even poured gasoline on their door. The man came out to argue with them, but to no avail. Instead, one of his legs was broken. After the police arrived at the scene, the man was sent to the hospital. After asking about the situation, no one dared to investigate, and there was no more news. Late at night, Volcano Bar. Shang Jinbong was hugging a blonde foreign girl in his arms. Bodyguard Jay followed behind him as he walked towards the bar with his head held high. Along the way, there were gangsters and delinquent girls greeting him. There were also a few young girls with dyed blonde hair and heavy makeup on their faces. They wore revealing clothes and hugged Shang Jinbong as they kissed him fiercely. Their breasts rubbed against his arms. Shang Jinbong took the opportunity to touch their breasts and even reached his hand into their clothes to pinch them. He laughed, "Haha, naked? I like it." He brought the group of women to a small private room nearby. Although it was called a private room, it was only separated from the main hall by a curtain. They could see the situation outside. Shang Jinbong turned his head to the bodyguard beside him and said, "Jay, how is it? How is it compared to your nightclubs overseas? This is my old base. Just tell me what you want." "Amazing. Shang, you really know how to enjoy yourself," Jay said with a smile. However, no one noticed that even though he was hugging a Caucasian foreign girl, his eyes were still cold as he spoke. "That's right. There will be a few friends coming over later. All of them are brothers from the central capital. They're all very skilled. You have to support me and show them your skills when the time comes." At the same time, on the rooftop of the Volcano Bar, a black shadow jumped up from the opposite building. Like a ghost in the night, he looked down at the bar's main entrance and the men and women who came in and out. Luxury cars, famous brands, indulging in a life of luxury and debauchery. Lian Ping's eyes flashed with a trace of blood as he murmured, "Volcano Bar." This was his hunting ground today. Chapter 17. Li Qian, with short hair and light makeup on her face, was walking between the bar counters. She was wearing a small dress and light makeup. She had a pure temperament and a hot figure. Especially her long and slender legs. She attracted the attention of countless men. However, no one noticed that she had purposely opened a small crack in her handbag. A miniature camera was recording the scene in the Volcano Bar. Success or failure depends on this. If I can capture the drug trade here, it will definitely be big news. Li Qian was an intern reporter at the Central City television station. She was beautiful and capable. When she was in university, she was the editor-in-chief of the editorial department of the school newspaper. When she joined the city television station, she was ready to do something big. However, reality poured a bucket of cold water on her. Reporters who could enter the city television station basically had their own ways. Li Qian was an outsider. She could chat and eat normally, but when it came to the real big news, it was not her turn to do it. What's more, a 50-year-old TV station executive wanted to sleep with her. After she rejected him, she was completely demoted. Basically, she could only do some chores in the TV station. Therefore, she pulled a colleague, who even pretended to be a student, and went deep into the rumored drug trade. She wanted to capture the drug trade in one fell swoop. When it was released, it would immediately be big news, and she would become famous. Many years later, Li Qian might laugh at her own childishness when she thought of what she did today. However, at least for now, she was very serious. However, after walking for almost 2 hours, although the whole place was full of smoke, Li Qian did not find any crime. She started to feel anxious. At this moment, Li Qian suddenly felt a strong surge of energy. Her shoulder was suddenly hit by a man. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. The man was about 1.9 meters tall. His body was very strong, but he did not look fat. There was a gloomy look on his face, as if everyone owed him 1,000,000 yuan. Rubbing her painful shoulder, Li Qian glared at the man. She did not want to be entangled with the man. She saw the man apologize to her and walk away. Li Onping found that the girl who was hit didn't bother him, so he turned his head and walked away. He looked up and saw 3 blonde Caucasian girls on the bar counter. They were wearing bikinis that only had a few threads left. They were dancing crazily on the bar counter. There were a few times when they shook out the nipples and then stuffed them back in. Deafening heavy metal music kept ringing in their ears. The audience below the stage cheered wildly and drank. Seeing this, Li Onping's frown deepened. His gaze wandered around, looking for a target to attack. The reason he came to the volcano was to find a few bastards who could absorb souls and secretly replenish his energy. Secondly, he wanted to see if he could get some information. There was also news about Huaqing and Shangjianbang. However, this was the first time he had seen the debauchery of such a place. After seeing the barbecue restaurant, his mood became even worse. However, he hadn't done anything yet. Before he had the power to fight against the government, he didn't want to expose himself. Suppressing the fire in his heart, Li Onping strolled alone in the sea of people, until a certain moment it quietly erupted. Shangjianbang got up and went to the washroom. However, he found Li Qian dancing around on the dance floor. This piqued his interest. He whispered a few words to the security guard beside him and returned to the private room. A few minutes later, a boy was brought into Shang Jinbang's private room by 2 security guards. With a long face, the boy passed a cigarette to Shang Jinbang and said, "Young Master Shang, I brought my sister here to play. She's still a student." The security guard beside him said, "She's probably a student from the nearby sports school. She likes to come here and play and doesn't know the rules." Shang Jinbang kicked away the student's hand that was holding out the cigarette. He patted the student's face with his palm and laughed. "Student, how are you? I asked her to accompany me for a drink, not to sell it. What's wrong with that? Isn't that right, everyone? Ha ha." The men and women sitting beside Shang Jinbang laughed. The boy didn't dare to believe him. He bent down and almost cried. He said pitifully, "Young Master Shang, I can't. She's still a student." Who knew that before he could finish his sentence, a man beside him picked up a beer bottle and smashed it on his forehead. The boy's face was covered in blood. He curled up on the ground and didn't dare to move. F***CK. So noisy. So what if she's a student? Young Master Shang, let her drink with me. Don't be so shameless. Shang Jinbang smiled proudly. He felt that he had the tone of a big boss. He pretended to drink a mouthful of beer and waved his hand to stop the man. He said, "All right, leopard. The student doesn't know any better. Why are you fighting and killing? You're scaring the little kid." At this moment, the boy on the ground was already scared stiff. He usually liked to hang out in bars. This time, he was dragged out by Li Qian to Volcano Bar to pretend to be a student. To be honest, it was also because he was greedy for Li Qian's beauty. Although he usually hung out in bars, how could he be hard when he met a real gangster in society? What's more, this leopard in front of him was the boss of Volcano Bar. He was famous for not caring about his life when he fought. It was said that when a gang came to cause trouble, he stabbed their kidneys on the spot. The next day, he buried them in the suburbs, and nothing happened. F***CK. Young Master Shang is so magnanimous. Why aren't you kneeling down? Leopard scolded. The boy didn't care about the blood on his head. He crawled up and knelt in front of Shang Jinbang. He lowered his body and said, "Young Master Shang, I'm sorry." Leopard looked at Shang Jinbang's eyes and shouted, "Slap yourself. If young Master Shang doesn't tell you to stop, you're not allowed to stop." On the sofa, Shang Jinbang drank a mouthful of beer in satisfaction. He placed one hand on the chest of the model beside him and caressed it wantonly. The sound of continuous slapping rang in his ears. He felt the domineering aura of standing at the top of society. At this moment, Shang Jinbang only felt that this was the life he wanted to live. His dad always wanted him to go into politics or manage the company. It really annoyed him. After a while, Li Qian was also brought over by the security. When she saw her male colleague kneeling on the ground, she was angry but didn't dare to say anything. However, she was quickly dragged over by a few burly men and pushed into Shang Jinbang's arms. At this moment, a burst of laughter sounded. A fatty wearing a flowery shirt and a golden necklace walked towards Shang Jinbang. Behind him were more than 10 burly men in black pants and black t-shirts. As they walked, the fatty laughed and said, "Young Master Shang, long time no see. Didn't I hear that you were going abroad? How come you have time to come here?" "Da Fei." "Fatty Fei." Shang Jinbang smiled and said, "You're late. Punish yourself by drinking 3 cups." Seeing the fatty drink 3 cups of beer, Shang Jinbang laughed and clapped. "Good, Fatty Fei. Today, it's all thanks to you. You helped me vent my anger. 2 little white-collar workers still want to meddle in my business. Young Master Shang is too polite. When I heard that it was young Master Shang's business, asking me to do, it was already giving me face. If someone outside called Da Fei fatty, they would have had their legs broken by his men. However, when he heard Shang Jinbang call him that, the fatty with the nickname Big Brother Da Fei licked his lips and laughed. He picked up a bottle of beer on the table and drank it in one gulp. "Where's sister-in-law? Why didn't she come? Sure is pregnant. Dad wants us to stay. Otherwise, I would have flown across the sea and played in a master." Da Fei nodded and glanced at the man kneeling on the ground. He cracked a smile and said, "Young Master Shang, you're in a good mood. You're even teaching a child. My student doesn't know anything. I have to teach him how to behave." Shang Jinbang picked up his glass and pointed to Jay and Da Fei. He said, "This is my bodyguard, Jay. He just came from a master. I treat him as a brother. This fatty is Big Brother who is right-hand man. He's in charge of the south of Zhongdu." Jay looked like a black man, but he spoke the Xia's language very well. Seeing Da Fei, he didn't treat him as an outsider. He said hello and drank his glass. "Good. This black brother is very forthright." At that moment, the 3 people exchanged glances. They flattered each other, teased each other, and talked dirty. After a few glasses of wine, they became good brothers who went through life and death together. From time to time, they would point at the man kneeling on the ground. Looking at his swollen face, the men and women would laugh unrestrainedly. Li Qian, who was in Shang Jinbang's arms, stiffened. She had grown up in an ivory tower and had never experienced such a thing. At this moment, she regretted her decision to come to the volcano bar. Her heart was scared to the extreme, and tears were about to flow out. Shang Jinbang felt that it was even more interesting. He laughed and reached his hand into Li Qian's underwear and rubbed it. "Don't want it." Feeling the girl struggle, Shang Jinbang became more excited. His hands moved up and down, making Li Qian scream. Finally, probably unable to bear the humiliation, Li Qian slapped Shang Jinbang's face. The surrounding instantly quieted down, probably because she was ready to risk it all. Although Li Qian's face was still covered in tears, she slapped Shang Jinbang's face again. But this time, Shang Jinbang grabbed her wrist and blocked it. "Bitch!" Shang Jinbang's face was livid. He grabbed Li Qian's head and slammed it on the table. "I gave you face, but you didn't want it." Shang Jinbang then slapped Li Qian's face. Shang Jinbang looked at the several people around him who were silent like cicadas in winter. He spat and said, "What are you doing? Come here," and beat him to death. The bar's security guards and Da Fei looked at each other. They didn't expect to hit a woman, so none of them stood out. At this time, Fatty Face shouted, "What you all doing? Why aren't you doing what young Master Shang ordered? Let me tell you from now on, young Master Shang's words are my words. This bitch didn't want it when I gave her face. Beat her to death." Then, a few people reluctantly walked out and grabbed Li Qian, who was on the sofa. Regardless of her struggles, cries, and shouts, they punched her a few times. A few minutes later, Li Qian lay motionless on the ground. Blood and tears mixed together. The surrounding ladies were all worried, but no one dared to persuade Shang Jinbang. "She's dying." Seeing that Shang Jinbang was a little bored, Leopard at the side hurried over. After a few glasses of wine and a few dirty jokes, the atmosphere in the private room became lively again. Only a man was left kneeling on the ground and slapping himself. Beside him, a woman was being punched and kicked by several burly men. There were all kinds of wounds on her body. She muttered to herself and looked like she was about to lose consciousness. Shang, Jun, bang. Li Onping's sobbing and complaining voice sounded from his mouth. His eyes seemed to flash, and then there seemed to be a trace of red light coming out. In the direction where Li Onping's eyes were looking, Shang Jinbong was lying in a private room. A young man was kneeling in front of him, and a young girl was lying at his feet. He was laughing wantonly. That smile was like a sharp knife, stabbing Li Onping's chest. Don't be in a hurry to take action. When you grow up, you could take revenge on them as the strongest. At that time, you can take revenge however you want without any danger. Black's persuasion sounded in Li Onping's ears, but the latter didn't seem to hear it. He is laughing, but he is still laughing. Li Onping clenched his fists tightly and began to tremble. He has hurt so many people. How can he still laugh? Chapter 18. In the private room, the atmosphere became more and more heated. Unknowingly, the girls' shirts were pulled open one by one, allowing the men to touch them. The large row of white pills on the table was eaten like candy. Li Qian lay on the ground, her mind in a mess, but there was a hatred that could not disappear. She hated her own powerlessness, hated her own weakness, but she was also afraid of the other party, afraid that Shang Jinbong would think of her lying on the ground. Shang Jinbong had been on television many times because of the rape case a while ago. Li Qian knew the other party's identity and background, so she was even more afraid. The slap just now had already squandered all her courage. She was so afraid that she did not dare to move at all, as if she was pretending to be dead, lying on the ground. What no one noticed was that, as the hatred in Li Qian's heart continued to intensify, within 4 to 5 meters with her, as the center, bills, banknotes, meal lists, and some paper items all began to strangely distort. Haha, that's enough. Don't beat her to death. Carry that woman over here. Today, she will be the first to bleed. Shang Jinbong's voice sounded. For Li Qian, it was like the whisper of a demon. But before anyone could do anything, Li Qian seemed to see something black flying over. Suddenly, there was a loud rumbling sound. In the private room, Jay was the first to stand up, but before he could figure out what was going on, he saw a 3-meter-long sofa flying towards them. Fuck. He wasn't a strength-type ability user. Although the surface of the sofa was soft, it wasn't something he could catch if it flew directly at him. He immediately pushed Shang Jinbong to the ground to block the impact of the sofa. You dare to cause trouble here after cursing next door? Are you tired of living? Amidst the chaos, Leopard wasn't hit by the sofa. He looked in the direction where the sofa had been thrown and saw a man walking over. He called a few burly men and rushed forward. In the next moment, he was sent flying. Screams, whistles, and all kinds of sounds came to his ears. Before he could understand what was going on, he saw the big men who rushed up fly out one by one. Finally, he stopped, the back of his head resting on the wall, blood kept gushing out, and he slowly slid to the ground, his limbs twitching slightly. No one could stop him. No one would have expected that when Leopard, this ruthless person, rushed toward a person with a bunch of thugs, the whole scene would look like a group of kindergarten students rushing towards a high school student. Whether it was strength or speed, the difference was like heaven and earth. In the end, the high school student casually broke the children, tore them apart, and threw them on the ground. Ordinary people screamed and ran away, the security guard hesitantly. Li Qian was lying on the ground, looking at the tall figure in the middle of the scene. Her eyes became brighter and brighter. Leopard, Defei, take young Master Shang Xiao. I'll stop him. Take the gun. Monster, Leopard, Li Zhang, Zir. Shang, Jun, bang. The voice was filled with endless resentment. Turning his head, Shang Jinbong saw a black thing flying towards him with a whistling sound. That's Jay's arm? The arm's shape was irregular, so it wasn't easy to throw it accurately. It slanted and smashed into the back of Defei, who was beside Shang Jinbong. A series of bone fractures sounded, and he fell to the ground, vomiting blood. Shang, Young Master Shang, save me. Blood splattered on Shang Jinbong's face. Run, run. Jay, who had one of his arms torn off, hugged Li Onping from behind and shouted at Shang Jinbong. Only then did Shang Jinbong wake up from his dream and ran outside without a care for his life. Roar! Li Onping roared, his spirit energy gushing out continuously. Before he made his move, he had already used burst mode. His body grew bigger, almost exceeding 2 meters. The effect of burst mode was more obvious when one's physical fitness was lower. At this moment, his strength and speed had reached 3, 7, and 3, 0 respectively. His muscles were bulging, making him look like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus Rex. He stretched his hand behind his back, wanting to drag Jay out. But in the next moment, a wave of weakness came over him. He felt a little dizzy, and he couldn't breathe through his mouth and nose. He couldn't muster any strength. It's oxygen, it's gone. Someone took away the oxygen. He's an ability user, Black shouted. Before Li Onping could understand what was going on, Jay had already taken out a gun from his pocket, pointed it at Li Onping's waist, and fired nonstop. Bang, 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 bang. Gunshots rang out, followed by a series of screams. Everyone ran even faster. After firing 15 consecutive bullets, Jay felt Li Onping's body go limp. He threw him to the ground, took out a magazine, reloaded it, and shot at the corpse again, only stopping when the magazine was empty. F*CK, F*CK, Jay's face was ferocious. He raised his foot and stomped on the bloody corpse. Trash, you piece of trash, get up, trash. The more he kicked, the angrier he felt. The ability user under his foot was obviously a mutated type. His physical speed and strength were unexpectedly strong. The most important thing was that he was too close to him, catching him off guard. In the end, he even tore off one of his arms. If it wasn't for the fact that the opponent thought he had already defeated him and was distracted by Shang Jinbong, he wouldn't have had the chance to activate his ability and kill him. But an arm, his left hand was gone. Thinking of this, Jay felt another wave of anger, followed by a wave of dizziness. Only then did he remember that his arm was torn off and was bleeding profusely. He needed to bandage it quickly, otherwise it wouldn't matter how strong his physical fitness was. So he didn't care about the corpse on the ground, turned around, and walked towards the door. But he had only taken a few steps when a huge force hit his neck, almost breaking it. Jay fainted. Li Onping was standing behind him. The wounds on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The bullets were squeezed by his muscles and bounced out of the wounds, falling to the ground with a crisp sound. Li Onping was about to act and kill Jay when Black's voice came. Don't kill him. Take him with us later. He'll be useful. Li Onping didn't ask why, only looked at Jay, who was lying on the ground for a while before chasing after him. His mind was filled with the thought of killing Shang Jinbong. But when he reached the door and pushed it open, he found that it was locked. The door was made of solid wood, located at the exit of the bar, where Shang Jinbong escaped from just now. He's here. Hurry and block the door. Bring everything here. Li Onping frowned, took a deep breath, and was about to use burst again. He had just been killed, so his burst status had lost its effect, and he needed to use burst again. Because the door in front of him was made of solid wood, about 5 to 6 centimeters thick, he couldn't break it open without using burst. You've been shot so many times, you don't have much energy left. Are you sure you want to use it on burst? If you get fatally wounded again, you won't be able to heal. After being shot so many times, healing had almost used up all of his energy. However, after hearing Black's words, Li Onping remained unmoved. He let out a loud roar, and his entire body expanded like a balloon. The muscles on his arms, thighs, and torso burst out. His entire body instantly grew from 9 meters to 2 meters. Feeling the endless power in his body, Li Onping gathered all his strength and punched the door. After a huge roar, the whole door was shaken open. Behind the door, there was the sound of people and horses being thrown off their feet. Li Onping pushed the broken door open and walked in, coming to the street. Seeing him coming out of the door, the people who were blocking the door immediately fled in fear. Li Onping ignored them, and his eyes searched for Shang Jinbao. But the next moment, gunshots were heard, and Li Onping was forced back into the door. Fortunately, his speed and reaction were amazing, or he would have been shot into a hornet's nest. Damn it, didn't I tell you to wait for him to come out and shoot? What are you waiting for? But, young Master Shang, there were brothers at the door just now. Trash, a bunch of trash. Shang Jinbao scolded, but no one dared to talk back. Although they were all Huiqing's subordinates, Leopard and Dafei were dead at the moment, and no one dared to disobey Shang Jinbao. Seeing the cowering appearance of the group of people below, Shang Jinbao was enraged. He casually snatched a pistol from a person and fired a few shots at the empty door before he arrogantly laughed. Idiot, didn't you want to kill me? Come on, I'm right outside, come and kill me. Behind the door, Black felt Li Onping's muscles tighten and immediately advised, calm down, don't be impulsive. You don't have soul energy now, you're really dead if you die. How can I not go out? How can I not go out? He killed my whole family. He ruined my life. You tell me, how can I not go out? Li Onping punched the wall, making a hole, and the cement and bricks inside all leaked out. Tell me, why can't I go out? That's why you have to be patient. If you really want to take revenge, don't rush out to die. You already have a way to become infinitely stronger. As long as you hold it in, there will be plenty of chances to take revenge in the future. Li Onping gasped for breath, as if there was a fire burning in his chest. Just as the two of them were hesitating, the sound of a police car came from afar. The police car is here. In the current situation, you're surrounded. We're finished. Go quickly. Damn it. Li Onping couldn't help but curse. At this time, Han Jinbao's voice came from outside the door again. Ha 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 ha. Idiot. The police are here. You're dead. You want to kill me? When I catch you and know who you are, I'll kill your whole family. I'll kill your whole family. Bastard, I'll take all the women in your family. Shang Jinbao's continuous insults came from outside the door. Li Onping's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. He gasped for breath, and his fists were clenched so tightly that they were about to bleed. At this time, his ears twitched, and Shang Jinbao's voice became clearer in his ears. He could almost feel Shang Jinbao's position, and then he looked at the hole he made in the wall. Thank you. Then he punched again, this time with all his strength, and smashed a large part of the wall. Li Onping picked up half a brick from inside. Outside the door, more than 10 police cars stopped. The police rushed out and immediately surrounded the whole volcano bar. Shang Jinbao stood in front of the crowd and shouted with a ferocious expression, "Hurry, hurry, a bunch of trash. All of you rush in. Remember to shoot at the legs. I want to catch him alive. I want to play him to death myself." But in the next moment, a hand reached out from the edge of the door, holding half a brick. Everyone looked at the hand, stunned. A black shadow flashed, and Shang Jinbao's voice came to an abrupt end. Everyone turned around and saw that half of the brick had smashed into Shang Jinbao's face. Almost half of it had sunk in. Shang Jinbao's face was completely deformed. One of his eyeballs fell out, while the other was squeezed into his brain by the brick. His brain was in a mess. After a suffocating sound, fierce gunshots sounded at the door of the volcano bar, shooting toward the door. Continuous gunshots rang out in the streets, as if a war had begun in Zhongdu. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.